And by the way, I want to say thank you to Robbie. He's been very gracious to help work through this issue with your general contractor, and he's been very good about working with me to try and find a resolution here, but we haven't got one, and that's why I'm here today. What I think he'll tell you if you ask him is that there's really no dispute about the amount of work that Anders did. This was a heavy lift for a local contractor to pull this much blast rock out of that project. He spent all summer doing it. I also think you're going to hear from Mr. Haas that there was a discussion right away when they figured out that they had this blast rock problem, that they need, I think he'll tell you, he told Anders, I need to get this project done. You're here, you have the equipment. Take really good records of your time, take really good records of the amount of material you move. I know it's outside your initial scope, but we'll get this figured out on the back end. Anders did the work. That was a year ago. He hired me in January. First thing I did was give the county notice. I have not gotten really any response since then, and Anders is out of time. He is literally teetering on the edge of bankruptcy. He's got a whole crew of guys that are about to be unemployed, frankly. I just had a meeting with his banker at Grand Marais State, Mark Youngdahl, to say, what's the viability of this claim type? Is he going to get paid? Because I need to know if I'm going to go recover my collateral, which is his equipment sitting in the yard. I say, well, I think the county's got to pay. We've already filed our 547 bond claim, but this has got to get moving. Because of that approximately $500,000, most of that is money out of his pocket that he paid for your benefit, paying his employees, paying for materials. We've got a big bill owed to Labota Grading we've got to go pay, and paying diesel. He can't survive and make those payments. So because of how long ago this started and where we are today, and I've had effectively no progress getting anywhere with the resolution, he has to sue you. And he has to sue you right away. I don't like that, and I'm here today to ask you to take some initiative to try to prevent that from happening, because if we have to go that way, you're about to buy a very expensive attorney's fees bill to defend the county, and I don't think you should, especially given what appears to me to be a real simple issue of the work got done. There's no question about the amount of work. The work was needed. We don't have any issue with the records. What are we waiting for? The thing he can't wait for is to get caught in this back and forth between the county's general, the bond company, and me. So I really urge you to take some initiative, talk to Robbie. He's been very good to work with for us. See what's going on. My door is always open. I would love to discuss any sort of creative resolution we can get here to at least get him back to operating and not making these horrible payments on his line of credit, so that this guy doesn't lose his hat. Sure. Thank you.
Thank you. Did any of the commissioners receive any comments they need to discuss?
Madam Chair, I have item to read that is from Don Davison of 583 South Shore Drive. Stop lying to us. You've made B&B, bread and breakfast, VRBOs, the worst thing to ever happen to Cook County. You apparently don't care how overnight rentals affect property value, let alone property taxes. You're not representing us. You are representing commercial interests that are trying to move us out of our homes. Buck up, represent us, not the commercial interests who are determined to move us out of our homes.
Thank you. Anyone else? Moving on to the consent agenda. We have claims, the minutes from the April 22nd meeting, resignation of Robert Wright, appoint Heidi Krampitz to the Revolving Loan Committee, a gambling permit request, permit to sell pull tabs from Rock Grill, resignation of Rose Downey, Fisherman Picnic Parade Special, and approve of Kelsey Ride for CADI waiver case manager. Does anyone have anything they'd like to discuss later at our meeting? Yeah, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. We are going to hear from the highway group of two.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
I'll turn it over to Matt to talk about the first couple of things, I think, here.
Yeah, luckily this is pretty cut and dry. I'm looking for authorization to purchase a steamer truck as part of our replacement schedule. This is just another piece of equipment that's due for replacement. It's replacing a unit that's from 2005. What are steamer trucks used for, one might ask? We have culverts all over our county roads, and especially towards the end of winter, typically what happens is water starts to move, and culverts, when they freeze, prevent that water from moving. Water pools up and can wash out roads. And what steamers do is allow us to use heated water to open up a pathway for water to move through that pipe. So pretty essential tool for us. Yeah, I would entertain any questions. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions, comments? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, I have no question. I would just move that we approve the purchase of a new steamer truck.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll support that.
Commissioner Sullivan, any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Hi.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously
How's
for
it
the
go-
steamer truck.
How's it going this spring?
I would say so far so good. We've recovered from the washouts a couple weeks ago, and now everything's dry, and we can't grade, so.
I noticed up the Sawbill Trail, you have some pipes laying there for future work there too?
Yep, yeah, once the roads, what we call heal, right now there's a lot of frost boils on the roadways, but once they heal, we'll start to do more culvert replacements.
Looks like you're ready to go when that happens. Okay, so then, Robbie, what are you going to tell us about contracts?
So we have, and Matt can elaborate a little bit more on our summer maintenance, SGSDs, if you're familiar with those. Those are ours, let's see, how does it work? Subordinate Governmental Service District. There we go. I heard some commissioners, yeah. So that is a unique thing we have up here in Cook County. Just as a reminder, no other county in the state has these for road maintenance, so I'm just going to put that plug in as something to talk about in the future. But we do have several of them spread throughout the county, and so this is we administer the contracts, so we don't do any of the work in our subordinate districts. We just do the contracts. And so this year, thankfully, I think we had at least one bid.
Only one bid per SGSD.
Per one, so we are basically one contractor away, again, from not having subordinate districts. So thank you to our contracting community for continuing this, but I guess we would entertain any questions about this.
Commissioner White?
I had a lengthy phone call with a resident who, same story, living on a private road where people move in, part-time people, the road's really falling apart. Some individuals have picked up the cost and the workload individually through the years, and the road has deteriorated to a point where they don't have the equipment to do it. What do?
Right.
So you should be getting a phone call, or Lisa. I tried to explain the best I could. Of course, part of the problem is that often landowners who move onto property on a private road and show up once or twice a year feel that they don't need to contribute to the road. And just sitting here, and we deal with that on our road too. And it works really well when one starts a road association, but when those properties are sold, new people come in, and even though it might be in their deed that it's a requirement, they blow it off. So I don't know how to fix that.
There's not a good solution for that. It's a problem throughout the whole county. Whether you have a private road and you have a road association or an HOA, or, Brady can probably speak a lot more on the different, types of associations that roads can have up here. The SGSD model is just one of them. And so there's a lot to it. But yeah, we're always happy to, I shouldn't say entertain a phone call, but if people have questions, that's what we're here for. Yeah. I don't have a good answer.
I knew there wasn't a good answer, and I told the caller there wasn't a good answer because it's all human beings everywhere that we're dealing with. And so,
And if this is helpful, we are approached, I would say, at least twice a year by different individuals on different roadways with questions about starting an SGSD. And it is a little complicated, and it takes a little bit of time and effort on their part to set it up. And so, yeah, I haven't seen any of those conversations lead to new SGSD applications, but we're certainly willing to have that conversation.
Right, and that front-end work that Matt mentioned, that's basically through the auditor's office, correct? Is that most of the time?
Depends on which front-end work you're talking about, but I think sometimes they contact you directly first.
Oh, okay, sure.
Sometimes
I think like how it gets set
Yeah.
up, how it's paid, that part,
right,
yeah.
how it gets set up in the system and how it's paid for, that's
Yeah.
in our office, but.
But yeah,
Um,
just give us a call if anyone's ever curious. That's what we're here. Yeah.
and so the question I have, would it be beneficial if I said, there'll be a informational meeting on how to get your road set up, or do we have a cheat sheet somewhere that I could take and meet with? I don't know the people, just a couple that live on that road, but to provide an opportunity for maybe the first time some of them actually speak to each other?
It could be an option, I don't know, I think where the subordinate districts turn into a lot of gray areas, how involved we at the county need to be. How involved, and I guess that is a question for the board as well, how involved would you like us to be on non-county roads? Right now, we already kind of manage, quote unquote, these contracts, which is, again, unique. We're the only county that does that. So, that's already kind of this asterisk. So now if we're talking about having to coordinate meetings with people on private roads.
No, I wasn't suggesting
oh.
that you would at all, but just if
I
you had a
see.
cheat sheet, I would go and flounder through as best I could.
Oh, sure.
Just to see if enough landowners would show up, and if they do, were they still on speaking terms?
Sure,
To do
we-
so. No, I believe that our highway department invests a lot of money, or a lot of time for these districts, and it's, no, you don't do the meeting.
So what we can do, I'll send you, we have a subordinate district policy. And it's pretty darn straightforward. It's really, I think it's what, if it's 3 pages, I'd be shocked. It's very short, but it lays out kind of all what our role is, what their role is as a subordinate district, different options for laying out, how are they gonna pay for road maintenance, what bidding looks like, do you want summer, do you want winter, do you want both? So I'll send that to you.
Okay.
One of the big difficulties for them in certain areas is determining the actual district, because these private roads, and they mix with federal and state,
yes.
and they're, and you can have determining, well, here's the section I want, but then who accesses that section of road, and so that's where you get in. You could have a district that's many square miles, or you can have something. Some of the ones that we have are fairly simple because it's along a lake, it's a single road, one way in, one way out. So those are fairly simple to set up, but now we've gotten to the more difficult ones in recent years. So it's a big decision. Who do they contact? Who's in their group? They aren't all just like one development with an HOA. They could be several developments or individual lots that got sold, and they don't have any natural group. And so they have to figure out who their group is.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. As the board is aware, we've had meetings on determining which roads we're going to take responsibility for, and it's a financial decision and based upon an assessment of use, and hopefully that's a process that is strictly based on the numbers. I think our role in this capacity is to inform. So if we provide information that addresses all the issues that are involved in this, will facilitate that process, and then it still has to come to us, just like anything that comes before the board relative to budget, issues related to the monies we have to spend. But on the front end, in order to cultivate relationship and be accessible, we don't want to tell people we don't have any more money. We want to let them facilitate the process, and it'll come in with the things that are necessary for us to evaluate where we go from there. So my encouragement would be cultivate the relationship by being accessible and providing information and answering all the questions, and try to make it a primer that makes things that they're not used to, understandable in the context of what they are used to, which is roads that need attention. So.
That's a really good point, yeah. And I can send, if anyone's curious, I can send that to our policy to everybody, so then you all have a copy of it. It is one, that's the one we just updated, I believe, fairly recently, so. Yeah.
Very good, thank you for bringing that up.
Well, I'm sure I'm going to get more phone calls on that one, so. And indeed, that is what I'm willing to do, because up front, I'm not the expert, but I can share information, and then phone numbers.
That's
But
fine. That's what we're here for.
information, and I understand our budgetary constraints, and it does take a lot of time from administrative staff to help even a well-functioning road association. So I'm here for all of you.
Are there any further comments or questions? I'll hear a motion then to award the 2025 contracts for summer maintenance on the SGSDs. Commissioner Sullivan?
So I'd like to make a motion to award the contracts to the following low bidders: Mike Rose, Jed Smith, Labota Grading, and that would be it.
Is there a second?
Oh, I'll second it.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously.
Wonderful.
Okay. Now we're moving to stripes.
Yes, striping is important. And so you'll see on here, cooperative striping contract, we've talked about that a lot over the last couple of years. You'll remember we did the lower half of the gunflint a couple of years ago, the upper half a couple of years ago, the lower half last year. This year, I think what my thought process was let's just get the rest of the county done. And so the last couple of years of going through this type of contract has been wonderful. We partner with St. Louis County. Lake County is also part of this, so it turns into one big northeastern Minnesota striping contract, which is great. So we're going to cover the rest of any road that's striped in the county will have new stripes by the end of this summer. And so I guess, does anybody have any questions? If you notice, the low bid did come in under, a little bit under what we thought the engineer's estimate was, so. Yeah.
Commissioner? So is that's just the roads that are, like Chicago Bay Road needs some upgrading, so we're not spending money on new paint for roads that aren't.
Correct. Yeah, and Chicago Bay is a unique one, because that was one, if you remember from the town
We don't want
halls.
striping.
Nobody wanted striping, and we kind of left that up to the community. It didn't matter on our end. It's such a low-volume road. It's a local road, so we're not beholden to anything. So basically, the neighborhood didn't want it, and we were like, great, done. No stripes. Yeah, so this is mainly, I should also add, only on our state aid roads, which also coincides with basically all the pavement, so.
Commissioner Mills?
Do Lake County and St. Louis County have different areas they do every year?
Yeah, I think every year there's this kind of comes up, so, they'll do different roads, yeah, and so go ahead.
I'll let you continue.
No. So my thought process was hopefully, so we'll get this done in theory this year. Next year, when this rolls around, see how the gunflint's holding up, basically. If everything's fine, then we just wait another year. So it's just, I want to make it a very regular occurrence. And maybe instead of doing, maybe it turns into doing the whole gunflint in 1 year, wait a couple of years, then do everything else to try and spread things out. But, we got options. I think just paying attention to it, knowing this process exists, gets us a good price as well. So, yeah, it's been really good.
Yeah, I was just wondering about timing and staggering and all that, but
Oh,
you're on
sure.
top of it, and thank you very much.
Thanks.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a good example of something that I think when it comes to the budget process, that we might dig down in. If we're looking at areas where, man, if there's something that's sort of mandated, or we know we have to do it, it's going to cost us big dollars. And I guess, at first glance, if it's a matter of saying, well, St. Louis County, Lake County's doing it, we partnership, and then so we get the economy of scale in that regard. But if it's a subjective decision as to when we do striping or don't do striping, and say, well, I might be able to hold off on striping this year, if it's just a matter of saying that it won't be as intense on the road, but you can still see them something. So
Yep.
I'm just throwing it out as, is this one of those areas, nothing's driving it except our assessment and our partnershiping when opportunity comes up?
All of the above. Good,
Yeah.
all good points. If you remember, the Gunflint a couple of years ago basically had no stripes on it. And so, we don't want to get to that point.
Yeah.
But you can already see now a couple of years of plowing on it. And plowing's what,
Sure.
is the main driver of kind of scraping that stuff off. But yeah, I mean, basically it's just eyes on it. And once it, we feel like it's starting to go, or, maybe some phone calls start ramping up of, hey, it's rainy or it's foggy and it's really hard to see the lines. Okay, time to do it again. So there's not a hard, you could sit there and say, all right, I'm just going to do it every 3 years no matter what. But I think it's easy enough for us to put eyes on something like that and say, well, we can wait another year. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, thank you.
Any further questions or comments? I'll hear a motion then to recommend awarding the low bidder of Sir Lines a lot for the cooperative striping contract for
Not great.
$238,542.09, and this is a budget expense.
So moved, Madam Chair.
I'll support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Same sign.
you.
Motion passes unanimously. That's quite a title for them.
It's great. Well, and they've been the ones that have come up here the last few years, so they do a wonderful job. They stripe all over the place, so it's a great name. Good for them.
Must have had a focus group that helped them.
100%.
And then we're going to mill the hill next.
Yes, and so if you remember, like any good government agency, we love paperwork, and we love paperwork that is exact. And so I had brought this forward probably a month or so ago, and that dollar amount was a lot bigger. It was about $2.5 million. So this is okay, though. We got too much money. This is a rare problem that we are seeing right now. So we secured a lot of different grants for this project, and what that meant is we were able to offset kind of the burden on bridge bonds on the local legislature, or on our state legislature. So instead of us asking for 2.5, we only ended up having to ask for a little under 1.6. So this is just revised paperwork on that. We're still getting 1.6, which is great. That's all we actually need. Our bids came in lower than we thought as well, so that's also a great thing. So this is just kind of the revised paperwork for that. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions or comments? Commissioner Miller?
Once we get further along, could it be the case where costs increase?
Yeah, so what happens is, the state had set aside, $2.5 million for us, right? We ended up securing enough other funding where now we only need 1.5. So that extra million kind of goes back in the pot for anybody in the state, granted. So yes, if costs do escalate, we can always ask for more. But that would be a pretty hefty, I don't anticipate anything like that. We've had little changes here and there, but when you start getting into that dollar amount, there would have to be a pretty darn significant whoopsie.
Change, yeah.
Yeah, or
Thank you,
change,
yeah.
yes.
Commissioner White?
Do we get points for giving money back?
We did. I got a pat on the back.
Okay, good.
Go us.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, and thank you for your good work on this. Can you tell us if you know when we're getting money from the state and we work hard and find funds elsewhere, whether that earns us anything moving forward and it doesn't work to our detriment from the standpoint that the state says, well, they usually find money, so we'll give them less?
So, bridge bonds, which is what we're talking about, is just first come, first serve. And
Okay.
so it's not on any merit system or anything. It's any bridge that we have in the county
Yeah.
is eligible for that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's no, it's as long as we can get plans in, done, approved, put in the application, as long as there's money, we'll get the money.
And so, as a follow-up then to that, based upon what you said, that when you say thank you for your good work on this, is that anticipating and getting in there early, if it's first come, first serve, it's just having the foresight to see these things and do that. So that's not necessarily going to happen unless you and your staff take the initiative to get that done. So the county appreciates that because you would rather have the state pay for it.
Oh, yeah.
Although it's a ripple effect on taxes anyway, but.
That's true. But
So-
yeah, nope, that is a good point. I appreciate too the board's support. You know, when we work with consultants on projects like this, this is a great example of a project. We can't do this type of thing in-house.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of these types of projects and structures that we do have to call somebody for.
Yeah.
And so the reason that support that you lend us allows us to get ahead in line, get first in line, get this money, and, you know, do a lot of work in the county. So thank you all.
Just for knowledge. So what do the consultants do that you couldn't do? Is it a matter of time? Or,
Time, knowledge, expertise. So before I moved up here, I started my career as a bridge designer. And so it was, I would do projects like this. But I didn't get 700 emails a day and have to come to board meetings and write grants and do lots of other things. So it is very specialty. If you're ever curious, I can walk you through a plan set. And you can see kind of the complexity, the difference between something like a project that is maybe like a mill and overlay. So we're just going to scrape off the surface of the road and put back what's there, like we're doing on the Arrowhead Trail, versus, you know, a bridge where you're talking about abutments and the reinforcement in the abutments and the math that goes behind all of that. Every single bar has to be labeled and put in the plans. So it's quite a bit different. There's a level of expertise we just don't have up here. Which is fine. It's rare to see highway departments, unless you're St. Louis County, have their own internal bridge designers specifically. So that's a big reason why we talk to consultants.
thank you.
Any further comments or questions? I'll hear a motion then to support the revised grant agreement, Milva Hill and Little Devil Track River Bridge replacement to less than 1.6 million.
So moved. Support?
Any further comments or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just a comment for the public, behind us, we have an example of what we had here at the open house last night on the airport master plan. So they graciously left all the plans here for us to look at now and in the future, and it was a well-attended meeting, and appreciate Commissioner Sullivan organizing that with the airport board and committee. So we'll move on to building and work with Brooke. Good morning.
Thank you. First of the lighting projects is the global building LED lighting upgrade. It's a $17,000 upgrade, replacing all the fluorescent lights in the global building to improve lighting conditions, working conditions, reduce energy costs, and it's on the CIP bonding is how we're funding that one. The global building, after it's said and done, we would receive a rebate from the public utilities, Grand Rapids Public Utilities, of $1,832 and annual energy savings of $448 is what's estimated on that. So with equipment only, it's a buyback of 8.81 years. Labor, it's quite a bit longer. Labor is quite expensive up here, so it is, you're looking at 30 years.
And you were able to contact locally too with Nordic?
Yep, Nordic's going to do the work. Yep.
Questions or comments, Commissioner Mills?
Sorry, I thought of this late last night, so sorry I didn't get it to you ahead of time, but has there been discussion in these items about the color of the lighting?
No, we're just, so when they got the new greater garage, all of a sudden they discovered how nice it is to have, 4,000 to 5,000 K good LED lighting where they can work. So that's what brought it to my attention was, boy, this new garage really lights up and we can really see what we're doing. Is there anything we can do? Well, in the CIP bonds, that was called out for lighting replacement. So that's what kind of facilitated the whole thing.
Yeah, and I guess I was just that's great. I was just asking, hoping that there is some discussion about that, and so if 5,000 K is good for the shop, then great. And different places have different, better colors maybe, so just as long as that's, thought about or talked about, I
Yeah,
guess.
it's a pretty white,
Mhm.
it's a
Oh,
pretty
yeah.
bright white, yeah.
Yep.
You wouldn't want it in your house, but it works well with the high bay light.
Exactly, yeah, yeah. I'd make a motion to approve the lighting upgrade to the Goa building.
Is there a second?
I'll support.
Thank you. Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously. Moving on to more lighting.
Yeah, so now this is the community center. So this will be the interior, some exterior lighting, just wall packs to light up the outside. Some are currently not working, and others just need to be upgraded. They upgraded, again, what kind of brought this together was when they redid that office space where Sarah and Anna sit, they did the new LED lighting in there, and they just didn't do the rest of the building. So we're just continuing the same fixtures and everything out to the rest of the building. And with this one, it's an expensive one as well. It's a $26,000. It's a annual savings of $517 approximately with a $2,000 rebate. So we're looking at, for equipment only, it's about 11-year buyback.
Commissioner White?
Brooke, does this include the curling arena?
No, the curling arena has been upgraded.
Okay. Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So Brooke, I appreciate the numbers on the savings. Every dollar is a saving is important. And the rebate factor due to the energy upgrade. The other question is replacement. What's the service life of what we've had and what this will provide for us as far as the fixture goes?
Well, it'll help us out in the facilities department for replacement costs, because we're up there a lot replacing starters, ballasts, and fluorescent tubing has become quite a bit more expensive because everybody's moving to LEDs, so the tubes themselves have cost quite a bit, and then also the cost of getting rid of the tubes is
Right.
there. So it'll help us. I mean, they say it's a 20,000 hour light fixture. So if we're looking at an average of 1,000 to 2,000 hours, it's kind of tough to average what those lights are on in there. So it's a long time.
Yeah, and I guess, in looking at the decision relative to, this is going to improve the lighting, and it's going to lessen the cost, energy cost, and we get a rebate because it's an incentive, and it'll involve less time because you're not having to do all of those. And I can identify with that. It is a pain in the tuchus with aging fluorescent fixtures.
Yeah. And we're, with regulation and stuff, back in the day, we used to tear those light fixtures apart and fix
Yeah.
them and stuff. But now with the UL rating, you're voiding the UL rating. So if there is a problem, it's a major problem.
Yeah.
So we have to hire a contractor to do a lot of that work now, where we used to just get by with doing it in-house.
Yeah,
So it complicates things.
yeah.
And then again, just the color discussion, different situations, so
Yep, this
Yep.
one, we're just matching the office color, which is a warmer color. I think it's around the 3,000 K.
thank you. Sorry to be.
No, that's fine.
Any further questions or comments? Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the lighting upgrade to the community center at a cost of $26,217.50.
I'll support.
Any other questions or comments? We heard a motion, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously. And one more lighting area.
The last one, it's community center and facility storage at the old search and rescue building. It's an $11,800 upgrade, and again, it's replacing the old, there's some high-pressure sodiums in there in the garage part, and then some fluorescent tubing in where they used to have some offices. And that one, we have an energy savings of $552, a rebate of $1,200. This one is the best payback on equipment of just under 4.5 years, 4.2. And now the old search and rescue building hasn't been utilized as much as I feel it should be. It's a nice building that's concrete, heated, not quite heated, tempered, we call it. But with the expansion of the office space downstairs and kind of the work we do downstairs, I'm going to be moving some of that loud, more dirty, more intrusive work we kind of do down in the basement over to the search and rescue building. We're going to kind of get things cleaned up, get things organized. We've kind of kicked around the idea with Rowan in the past about getting some dog kennel sections where we fence off areas and this department, so you get your space and you can access your space instead of we have a lot of just people throwing things wherever they want, and then they'll call us and say, hey, we need this moved and this moved to get at our stuff. So we're gonna just gonna clean that up, utilize the space. It's a nice space, and as you all well know how much it costs to build a building in this county right now. It's still standing, it's warm, it's got concrete, so we're gonna start utilizing it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I was going to ask just about the investment in this particular building, and I wasn't super privy to its condition, so I appreciate all that.
I might have gotten a heads up on that question.
Oh, good. It's a good way to do it.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Brooke, this again would be another example where I think department comes before the board looking at budget and just saying, we need to address lighting because of these issues and da-da-da-da-da. And when you look at usage of buildings similar to the highway department looking at uses of roads, we'd say this one might be something because of its use right now. Moving forward, if we make it more use, we use it more often, then at that point in time, it would be recommended we do this. But this is an area where we could hold off on that investment. I'm just saying, looking forward, when we do those analysis in what you've presented to us today, that might be one where
For sure.
it could be looked at.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, for sure.
All right, thank you.
And I don't know how we look at the CIP bonds and the bond funds and that type of thing, but it was Brady kind of reiterated to me when I started that, we've lost a year on using these bonds.
Yeah.
We kind of need to get going on utilizing them, so I've been looking at projects to utilize the CIP bond funds.
Yeah, makes sense.
Trying to save them some paperwork, I guess. If we run over it, you can get.
I appreciate your research too on the savings and the rebates. That's.
I lean heavily on the Nancy Kelly, who works with the rebate with the SEMBA.
Oh, yes. Yep.
Yeah.
Southern Minnesota Power.
Power. Yeah, she runs this kind of area for that. So it's a nice resource we have, and that's what she does for a living, and she can crank these numbers up very quickly.
She's very proactive and
Yeah.
follows up, so.
Yep. She's pushing me now to look at relaying the YMCA. Not the entire YMCA, just the old gym that still has giant fluorescent tubes and a bunch of burned out, and we're looking at getting in and doing a bunch of repairs in there later this year. And now we're looking at, it'd probably be a better time just to replace that lighting as well. And again, we have some CIP bond funds allotted for the YMCA for this exact thing.
Okay, Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the lighting upgrade for the community, for the storage and workspace behind the community center, and that would be at a cost of $11,813.
Support?
Any further questions or comments? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passes unanimously. So Brooke, thank you for enlightening us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Thank you.
Had to do that. Okay. Moving on, we're going to hear from Allison Plummer on job description and upgrades. Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
All right. I hope after today I don't have to come here as often, at least with job description reviews and updates. So this is an exciting day for me because these are the last two positions in our job description queue to go through the full review, classification review process. So the two positions, well, I mean, one is a fairly large position that covers multiple staff, but the two descriptions today that I have include the finance controller position. This is a renaming of the formerly called accountant / financial coordinator position. This is Kelly Berg's position in the auditor's office. That position includes the updated job description and then a recommendation to change the job grade from a 180 to a 190. And then the other kind of larger encompassing job description is for our case manager job family upstairs. So kind of renaming what we typically have referred to them as social workers, aligning more with current state verbiage and calling them case managers. So this covers right now, I think I have 11 employees that would fall under this revision. Includes a base case manager job description, and then given the uniqueness of the individual roles between the three social worker teams, we then created addendums to identify the unique roles for each individual, but in commonality, they all share the same roles of that base case manager position. And this also includes a recommendation to change the grade, the job grade, from currently a 170 to a 180.
Any questions or comments right now for this one? Commissioner Sullivan?
Just like to make a comment. I feel the same excitement that you do, that we're down to the last two, because I've served on that committee for 5 years, going on 6, and I'm really excited to see the progress that the committee has made, and in particular, the work recently on the job descriptions. So thank you for your work. I know it's takes a lot of effort, a lot of back and forth.
Commissioner White?
Well, I haven't thought the question out well, but when someone is given a new definition of what they do, how often, we know what they do because they've told you what they do, right? That's part of them. How often are they assessed on getting their job done, or how well it's working for each individual employee? I mean, is there a rotation? Like, it can't happen just every time we redo their job description. Do they get an assessment?
Annual review?
Do you mean like
Yeah,
a
an annual
performance
review, yeah, something
Oh,
like that, like
yeah.
in the private sector. I'm just curious.
So a performance review in terms of how are they actually doing
Yeah,
within
and
their
are there
role?
questions, and is there something new that's happened in your job that you feel you're really not getting compensated for because things have changed?
So I would say that varies. There's a kind of a couple of different factors within your question. So in our handbook, it does reference performance evaluations and a more formal process that should be done every year. And the county utilizes there's a performance appraisal report form that is usually completed, and that is the opportunity outside of what we would expect as normal, like day-to-day weekly communication on performance aspects of someone's job. There's that more formal paperwork process that's done, at the 6-month probationary period and then on their yearly anniversary. Where during that time frame, potentially maybe it's identified that there are roles that they're doing that they've kind of started taking on that are outside of the scope of their normal job description, and that could be a time to identify a need to review and update the job description. Otherwise, at any point that someone takes on a new role, something that is not reflected in their job description, regardless of potentially that would change the grade or not, we want to make sure that when those things are identified, again, at any point, that we go through the review process. We can do the same thing that we're currently doing with DDA. It just wouldn't be on a large scale, like with every job description. But when those things are identified, we would just individually work with that individual, the department, and DDA to get that reflected in the job description.
Okay, thank you. And I asked this, I had two different people, two different parts of the county ask me about, these are private businesses. How often does the county do performance reviews? Just a curiosity, no, not one way or the other, just a curiosity. And so thank you for sharing with the public.
You're welcome. What we also, I was just going to add too, what we try to do is a good practice is whenever there's turnover in a position, that is always a really good time also to review the job description and ensure that that is accurate. So then when we go and do the posting to recruit and fill that position, that again, we're bringing someone in with clear expectations of what that current role is.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. In my first term, this issue of having annual evaluations, we haven't been too good at. And at that point in time, we didn't have a human resource director either. It was part and parcel of, blended responsibilities elsewhere. But ensuring that we cultivate a healthy culture is predicated on making sure that we identify that people are doing the job we've asked them to do. And when people come in, clearly identifying that based upon what supervisors and in your position and working with department heads determine is important, then we give them that direction, and then we, as you say, during a period of probation, we have an opportunity to monitor, see how that goes, all with the intent of trying to equip people and encourage people in their positions and make things that are working well. And the culture is a huge contributor to that in making people feel that they are doing their job well and they're appreciated, and they know that their supervisor is there to come alongside and help with any questions that might come up. And so it is a discipline, the evaluation, which is a lot of times it's a sense of exposure when you have to sit down and we're going to talk about you. And so while it's uncomfortable, if we see the good that comes from it, and especially if we cultivate a relationship of trust where people feel I come to this with an opportunity to be affirmed in what I'm doing and to learn where I can improve and be better at what I'm doing. And when we have these opportunities, I think we need to see them in that kind of context. It's not just checking it off the list to get it done. It contributes to the culture that we create. What I would say, and I've said, as you very well know, as we've gone through this process now with our job upgrades, is that the premise upon which value is established is where I have a real problem. If you look at the 12 positions that we're looking at today, the effects of that annually in that job upgrade is $27,000. If you were to look at, in Brady's document we have before us and the board packet today, 145 employees with upgrades that we're bumping up, and now we're saying, well, we're at the point we got everybody bumped up. That amounts to $333,000 over and above what we are paying in wages right now. And so when we look at moving into our next year and our projections, just looking at where our wages are at and looking at what all these upgrades have been, because we bumped up that upgrade, my understanding, because we wanted to move to a higher grade in this process of hiring a county administrator. We bumped them up, which brings everybody up. So now, if we keep increasing that upgrade, that's where we say, well, we're doing it because this is what this shows. But again, the premise on which value has been determined, I think, is faulty. And that's why I'm not supporting these things. It's a difficult thing to address because I don't want to look like a naysayer, but from the fiscal standpoint, I think it's something that needs to be looked at. And it has no reflection on the people, because I appreciate the people that do their good work, but we just have to know where we're benchmarking ourselves. And I think in our interview that we had with our county administrator, 2 candidates, the one candidate said, I like comparisons. Comparisons help us to understand how we're doing in the context of other counties. And he said, you certainly wouldn't compare Hennepin County with Cook County. And when he made that statement, I thought, oh my goodness. So this is why, again, I say respectfully, the intention is to work for the good of our employees and the good of our citizens. And this process has contributed significantly, if you look at our percentage of budget with our wages, and Brady said it, and that's why this is very challenging.
Any other questions or comments? I'll hear a motion to approve the job description of the finance controller and the case manager, which are new titles from previous.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Is there a second?
I'll support.
Any further questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes 4-1 in opposition. Thanks for all your work, appreciate it, and we won't see you for a while.
We'll see. Yeah.
I know you have other things to fill in.
Yeah.
And Allison, please thank Tessa for her work with us. I really appreciate the fact over several years she's hung in there with us as we looked at the compensation study, completed that market analysis. I think it's been very helpful in making Cook County more competitive.
I'll relay that to her. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is parking lot service with Brady.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is our annual contract. It's been our annual contract with Voyager for a number of years, over 10 years at least. And so they're willing to do this again for us. What's changed this year, the only real change in the contract is now we're just managing the one large lot that we own. The Forest Service lot, they've decided to take that over, and they're doing that this year. So they've already made a number of changes up there. That's Moose Pond Drive. We call it Lot 2. So they set up a new kiosk, a fee collection tube, picnic table, small garbage can, et cetera. And they'll be doing the cleaning and maintaining the boat launch moving forward. So for the 25 season, they're going to continue to accept the annual parking pass that we sell for both, because this wasn't planned long enough in advance. And then next year, they may have a fee of their own set up for their lot. So they'll be totally separate at that time. But other than that, the contract is the same. Voyager has not asked for very little increase over these years. I think they're doing it, it serves their customers too, I think largely is why they do it. But, so we're glad to have them.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Well, given this is District 4, and I have lots of constituents who are interested in this, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agreement with Voyager Canoe Outfitters to provide parking lot services at Sag Lake Parking Lot 1 for the 2025 season.
Support.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously.
So, Madam Chair, the next item is a payroll service. We've been looking to go to another payroll service for, the strategic plan worked on this for a couple of years. And and they identified this as one of our needs because of we don't have a well-functioning HR system to go with our payroll system. We have payroll through MSIS, who does our tax system. They do a great job of it. But not in the HR and the link of the two. And we have a lot of redundancies in what we enter into our payroll system and then enter into the HR system and other things with benefits. There's a lot of benefits to having a single system. A lot of counties understand this, and that's why MSIS had, I don't know how many counties originally, but they built this system because the counties asked them to. There weren't a lot of viable electronic payroll systems back then. But since then, one by one, counties have been dropping off because there's just better software, better services out there that the private industry can provide. And now they're down to 5 counties. I came before here and you guys approved giving them notice that we would go off that system at the end of this year, actually the first quarter of next year. And they're now down to 4. And this year, the cost is about $33,000 for MSIS payroll. It's going to, I mean, I feel bad for the 4 left. It jumps their cost to $43,000 because now they're down to 4. And MSIS is 1 more. If they lose 1 more, it's not viable for them. So at some point, everybody's doing this eventually. We would be forced into this. So we worked on it. We've worked with we've looked at a lot of companies. We think UKG is probably the best fit for us. It's how we do our HR right now. We call it Kronos. That was the old standalone company in 2019 when this was HR went to it. And now they merged. And now it's UKG, which is also UKG and Kronos. It's the software and so, we think this is the way to go. Now they've worked with us. We've worked on it 2 years with this committee, and we've visited other counties. Cass County, which is very similar to us, which is on UKG. They still have the same time system. We use e-time through RT Vision. The same with their highway, so they're very similar. Works very well for them, and we visited. We think it'll work well for us too. And UKG has been. They want us. They've been cutting these prices. Our launch fee is half of what I put into the board packet 2 weeks ago. Now they're offering it at $33.85, and I'd put 66 or $67.70. And if you go to the MNCCC is another way that you can, join this service. That's a consortium of other counties. There, the launch fee, they kind of have a blended rate. Their estimated launch fee is between $20,000 and $25,000. So they want us, they want to make us happy. So whether, it means we'll be happy 5 years from now, I don't know. But it seems like we ought to take advantage of this offer right now. So our base subscription fee would be around $10,000 for 2026. We know there are service fees. If you run extra payrolls, you're going to get charged, and I think the fees are in the board packet. I've checked with other counties, and they do have extra fees, but it's not a lot. I put it out there asking, are you paying extra 20, 30% a year on these extra fees? And the ones that I talked to said no. It's pretty rare, actually. So yes, you can expect some. Mostly the increase comes if there's some product that they have that you decide gives you better service, And that's what they're hoping for in the future. And you say, oh, that would work even better. And so they have a whole suite of other services, and I think that's where they're hoping to make their money in the long run.
Administrator Rogers?
I'd just like to add, I've sort of been in this conversation for almost since I started at the county in the beginning. I remember a question from you, Commissioner Gamble, a long time ago when we were talking about our financial system. We had a small mainframe here, and you're like, can't we just move this over to like PCs? And it was, you know, a complicated question. We were eventually able to get the mainframe out of here, work with MSIS to have them host it. And then during the time I was administrator in a previous life, one of the first things I came to the board and asked them to do was cancel a project that we had going with Kronos to do this switch then. And the reason that I looked at that and said, we need to stop, is it was a black hole. We were pouring money into it every month. We were going to spend, it was October, we were going to spend another $12,000 that year. And that we weren't making any progress to actually changing that over. I think it's important that we do this for a couple of reasons. One, HR and payroll are linked by this thing called benefits. And when we don't link them in software, then it creates an awful lot of overhead in our operational costs. And most of the people that do these jobs, like Allison Plummer and Nick over in the auditor's office, are one deep. They're one person. So any way that we can create operational efficiencies is really a good thing. The other thing is the risk that we're avoiding here, which it's inevitable that this is going to go away. And, you know, we're adding to it, but it's been going down, and every year it goes down, the cost goes up, and sooner or later, one more person leaves, one more county leaves, and MSIS says, we're not going to do this anymore. So regardless whether we do it now or not, at some point, we'll be forced to do it. So having gone through this process, we've gotten favorable pricing, we're at a place where we're planning for it ourselves and not being forced into it, is a huge risk reduction effort. So I think one of the things that I would call out, just to be totally transparent about this, is when you're doing this kind of conversion, and it's a lot of work, a lot of data checking and making sure the two people that are going to be doing that are those two people that are one deep in those two positions I've already mentioned, Allison and Nick. And you might find that Brady's going to come back and say, we got to spend a little bit more money here, getting some consulting help from this vendor to help us do that. But the long-range impact of doing this is still worth it in my mind, because our long-range costs, the difference between $20,000 a year and $40,000 a year, is pretty significant already. But also the benefits that we get operationally going forward. So these are the reasons that I've, you know, when I first got back here, and they said, oh, come to a meeting about payroll, I went, no, not again. But because these are complicated projects, and they have a lot of risk in them because of all of the data that's managed. But as soon as I kind of started hearing the proposal and all these options I've talked about, I thought, this makes a lot of sense to do this now. So I just wanted to put that in as a past MIS director who, like, always was cautious about these projects, but I see the value of it this time and going forward now. So just wanted to put that in there.
Thank you. I think we all appreciate past experience and hopefully move forward with that. And then the thing that we're facing right now with changes and so forth that we need to consider, and the fact that we're one deep is really important.
And I think, too, those of us who were working on this project back then, when we first tried it, this company has changed. They've matured. They were in the midst of a massive growing project at Kronos, and then they ultimately got merged or bought out by this other firm. And just in the people that we deal with, they're a lot more transparent and better answers, more timely you could just tell it's a better operation. The other big problem we had at that time, we didn't know going into it, was that our HR system was built differently than our payroll system, and they had to start over. And they didn't tell us that. Kronos didn't tell us that we really needed to start over. They were pushing us along to get us built at that time without those two linking, and we would have struggled mightily after that. And when we discovered that, that's when it had to end at that time. But they assure us now that they are working with their HR system for a number of years now. We won't have that difficulty this time, so that's the other.
Commissioner White?
Just a quick question. Alarms, we have two positions that are one deep. I mean, I have stress about Brady, only one Brady, but we've got two individuals whose jobs are essential, and what's their backup? I mean, what's the backup if Nick has to go to a Bora Bora for 5 months for some reason? Or something, you know, or if Allison hops on a train and we never see her again, you know? Do we have people trained in their departments, or we just all lock the door and be done?
No, right now, it's there's one guy at MSIS who is the expert in this, and we would be sitting down with him and working however many hours of the day and night to get payroll up. He'd be walking us through it. It would be a miserable experience, but we'd do it.
I would say that this system will be easier to
Yes.
do payroll.
Okay.
And so the possibility of having a backup in Brady's office to just, be able to work off of that.
Yeah.
I once shadowed this job, the MSIS payroll. I wrote pages and pages.
Yes.
I couldn't believe how complicated it was, and all the steps that you had to do and send checks here and do this. I've never seen anything quite like it in terms of how it was cobbled together. It takes a long time to learn it the way it is now.
We've really had one person who understood it because she was here as it was developed and stayed here for 30 years and knew it very, very well. Since then, it's a long training period to get someone new on that system. And it works well once you know it. And you have to keep a lot of spreadsheets on the side and notes and how do I do this, how do I do that, because it's a lot, you can't remember it all. So there's a lot of, yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So Brady, when we had talked about this yesterday, you hadn't had some documents, but those documents came in
Yes.
because then they got added. And so in the discussion, it was a matter of, and I appreciate the work of the committee and the history that contributes to saying we need to do something, and it's better to be proactive than it is to be reactive in this situation. It's significant. The question was with their basic plan, and that's what they've quoted to us, and then they have all these surcharges. And so the discussion was related to the fact that, like in building construction, if you have chargeable changes, that's when you really start to get hit, because you think you know what it's going to cost you, but then you get these chargeable changes and your end bill is a lot more than what you anticipated. In this case, when we look at the list of things that are the chargeable changes, so to speak, in the analogy, you can anticipate, well, this is something that I think would be important to us. And so these add-ons, knowing where we want to define the relationship by contract with the offerings that they have to us, as opposed to paying little by little as add-ons, maybe we would put ourselves in a different position as to the package that we would negotiate and agree to. What you said earlier in this discussion is that in talking to the other counties and looking at it, that if it's not significant, the add-ons, and we think from our assessment we can manage that, then we go in at this rate that we're looking at, which is 10,000 something as a basic plan. And we can add on those things that we anticipate and still look at that number in comparison to what it would be going into 2026 if we remained with our present provider at 44,000. So it's fair and it's honest to say that this is a significant savings from the dollar standpoint, and it's also significant in its ease of operation and what it contributes to us. And it also provides opportunity for multiple services that in relationship we could participate in if we felt we needed to do that. So in other words, we're aligning ourselves with an organization that offers more, creates more efficiency, and is cost savings. Would that be a fair statement?
That's a fair statement.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd make a motion to support the transition to the new provider.
Support?
Any further questions or comments?
And I'll just mention, in that long document that got added on, it's, there is an option for them to increase those base prices. It's 4% a year. So that's, I think that's fair. Given my concern when I did, without having that document, was that it might be like insurance, where you haven't made a change on your vehicle or your house, and then suddenly it's going up 10 or 15% a year without any, and you know why, because it goes on around the county, but they're making up their money elsewhere, and you don't want to be part of that. So it's not built in that way, so.
Commissioner Mills?
Oh, I just was going to ask Commissioner Gamble if it was okay to amend the motion to include the contract review with our county attorney and authorize board chair and auditor to sign the contract.
Sure.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for noting that, Commissioner Mills. Would you be able to say, in our present provider situation, what the percentage of increase has been annually?
Not a lot, other than when people leave, then it's huge. Other than that, it's, I couldn't say, but their general costs are cost of living at best at EMSIS, and they spread that around.
Yeah.
So I would say it would be cost of living,
Yeah.
other than when people leave.
Yeah. And the other thing, you said in your comments earlier is they really want us. And sometimes when somebody really wants you, they sort of bait you with an offer that gets you, and then all of a sudden, here you are, and then you find out, oh my goodness. But if what the
That's why we've
document,
kept working at it.
yeah, and that's why the document, if it says it won't increase more than 4, you can anticipate a 4% as a protective,
Yeah.
that it's not an incentive, and then once we get you in here, next year, you're gonna be surprised, but.
I don't get that sense
Yeah.
from them either, but it does put that thought in your mind.
Yeah.
So we kept working at it and contacting more people, and I think it's that you're gonna like this, and you're gonna want more.
Yeah,
And that will be where the cost savings is, if you go, that'd be nice, but we'll pass.
yeah, yeah,
Rosso, for example, they're 15,000 people, but they don't have HR, but they have the basic payroll, and that's what they stay with.
yeah,
And they're paying 16,000 after a number of years.
Yeah.
And they're not biting on the other.
And so the
So it's a
county-
choice.
yeah. The counties that you've talked to, then, all of them have spoke favorable about the experience.
Yeah, they don't, not everyone speaks favorably about the experience of launching it.
Yeah,
That's yeah.
yeah,
And in fact, that's one reason I wouldn't do it in an election year, because it's going to take up so much of his time, and maybe other people's time, maybe mine.
yeah.
I expect that, so. The ones that didn't have a bad experience have payroll departments, and they assign 2 people from there and 2 people from HR to go work on it, so that's different.
So we have a motion with the amended to Commissioner Gamble's approval of the contract amended by a review of the contract with Attorney Peterson. So, is that, okay. Okay. With that in mind, as a approval, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Who
Opposed?
seconded the motion?
Dave.
Okay, thank you.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you,
And
Brady.
at this time, I think we'll take a break, because starting with administrator updates, and then we're going to be visiting with DDA personally.
I think maybe what we'll do is we'll call him during the break, get him online, and so I'll switch that around
Okay.
and do that part first.
Sure.
That's okay.
Sure. Okay, very good.
Okay. So first up, we have joining us Pat Melvin from DDA, who is going to give us an update on the administrator search. And I think the board will have an opportunity. You've seen some high-level summaries. If there are questions you have or things that you want him to provide more information on, he can kind of walk us through that in the way that, with all the barriers that we need to attend to in this part of the process. So I'm going to turn my microphone over toward Pat, and I'll let him go.
Right.
Go ahead, Pat.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
Thanks for taking time to talk with me this morning. Just wanted to give you a quick summary. We posted again for the Cook County Administrator position April 8th through May 7th. During that time, we received a total of 25 applications. I think that the board in reposting was looking to get some individuals who maybe had some changes happening at the federal level with what's going on there. And in fact, we did have some individuals apply from higher level positions. We also had a number of individuals, or several individuals, I should say, we had several individuals with more of an emergency management background who applied. And so I have had an opportunity to take a look at the 25 applicants, and I put together a brief summary on each of those, and you've had an opportunity, I hope, to review that, and I have selected 10 that I think would be suitable for doing the video interview, information disclosure statement, and the work personality index. And then also, if the board would like, also have them complete the values homework that we added to the last recruitment, where they had indicate what are their top values and why. So I offer that up and am willing to take any questions, suggestions, etc. at this time.
Questions for Pat? If there aren't any specific questions, then maybe you could give us the numbers of the 10 that you are recommending.
They're highlighted.
They're highlighted. Did you see that?
Yeah.
So at this time, those 10 are not considered finalists, so their information, their identification is not public at this time. But the ones that I am suggesting are the ones that are highlighted in yellow in the summary that was provided to you. And I can certainly just list those numbers. Those are numbers 2, 4, 5, 8, 11, 13, 14, 19, 20, and 23.
Thank you on that. I don't have any color when I receive all these messages, so Administrator Roger supported me with that handout. Okay, good. All right, so that's good. We're on a roll now with these 10. Commissioner Gamble, did you have a question?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Pat, this is Commissioner Gamble.
Good morning.
Good morning. I'd like to ask you, with the 10 that you've recommended, and given what we, as commissioners, are hoping for with this process, what's your comfort level with the timeline moving forward with the inclusion of 10? Are you comfortable with that number, given what we need to get back and review with the June 16th, I believe, interview date set? Is that correct?
Yes.
Are you
I think we're going to be, sorry, go Go ahead,
No,
Commissioner.
that's right. I was just saying, are you going to be comfortable facilitating that with 10?
I think we're looking at selecting finalists on May 27th. I'm going to be hard pressed to make that because obviously I have to reach out to the 10 candidates and ask them to complete this information. So what I was planning to do is ask for a little bit of allowance there. What I had indicated was that I would have information to you as commissioners on May 18th so that you would have time to review that in advance. May 18th doesn't give me much time to reach out to candidates and to ask them to get their information back to me. It's a video interview as well as the work personality assessment and the information disclosure statement. So I think we're going to be hard pressed to make May 27th unless I have at a minimum a few more days in terms of when I get that information to you as commissioners.
And as a follow-up, Pat, it's both, respecting what you feel is reasonable as well as the candidates themselves not being inundated and feeling that we're not being considerate of what's involved in this. And so I think we want to protect both, your experience and time in facilitating this as well as the candidate's perception of what in the world, with a short timeline. However, we don't want to run into the other problem, which is trying to make all of these values protected in this process. We don't want to lose people. And I'm assuming with some of these applicants that they put their name out given what's going on. And if they get someplace else that responds, we would lose part of the pool. So that's a decision we have to make, is listen to you, anticipate perception by candidates, and our timeline concerns.
If the board was open to it, obviously, May 27th is kind of the immediate challenge right now of having information to you. If you wanted to push that out, it's going to push everything else out, but I think that would give candidates a little more time. And to be quite honest, I may contact them and they may say, not a problem. Some may say, I'm out of town, I won't be able to get this done until a later date. I don't know the answer to that at this time, so if you had some flexibility with me, I could, talk to the candidates and find out if there's any challenges in making that May 27th date. Otherwise, maybe you do determine that it waits until a June meeting.
So as a follow-up, with the various things that we've identified that we need to be mindful of in making this decision, if we said, find the 10 that you've recommended, we've all looked at the list and we're saying there's no more we want to add, or there's no one that we want to eliminate, not having the resume and not looking at things, we've got very little information to make an informed decision, so we're basically taking a recommendation. But if we look at what are our options relative to the things we've identified, it would be to reduce the number, so it wouldn't be so much work. And with that in mind, if you, following this meeting, were to contact, you might, with the 10 people, find out that somebody are no longer in the running. Would we reduce that so that our initial schedule might be more feasible? Does that make sense?
Correct. Yes, that's very true.
So we could say, at this, just say, if the board is comfortable, let's go with the 10, and then you contact, and then get back to Rena and let us know how many are still in the running of those 10, and if you feel it's feasible, and then we'll go from there.
That's certainly an option, yes. And I appreciate your flexibility.
Okay.
Lots of heads nodding here, Pat.
Great.
Okay.
I will reach out to them immediately and be in touch with Rena and we'll keep the process moving, but certainly appreciate your flexibility on that.
The other thing I'd say, Pat, is let's just say a scenario that you call and of the 10, there are 3 that are still in the running, then we would have to go back and revisit that list. I'm just throwing it out as a scenario. We ran into that before, but we should anticipate, potential. I wouldn't see it happening if we're timely in this, but that's the scenario we'd have to go back and look at if the board wanted to include, if in fact we found that there were fewer in the pool of the 10 that you're going to contact.
Yes, and I wonder, if the board, if I do have a couple drop out, say 2 to 3, if we still have 7, again, individuals are not being invited in for an interview at this point.
Right.
They're just being considered for an interview. I mean, if some individuals do drop out, as long as it's not significant, where we're down to 3 or 4, I would assume that, the board would probably be okay with proceeding, because typically what we would look for is 4 to 5 to invite in for an interview.
I would agree with that. If in fact the board had the resumes, we would be able to make a better informed decision as to the who. You know what I'm saying? At this point, we're taking a recommendation based upon what we identified to you as what we were looking for. But if in fact there were a lot that dropped out of the pool, from my perspective or my standpoint, I would like to see the resume if we were to go to backups. You know what I'm saying? In other words, if you call and you find out we have very few in the pool from your initial recommendation, if we were to go to a second review of this, I would like to see the resumes before I would make that determination.
Okay.
In that scenario where, and if we have 10 and only 5, I wouldn't have a problem with that, but I'd like to know the 5 of the list that you gave us.
Okay, so what is the threshold, Commissioner Gamble, what is the threshold where you want more information? Is it, we currently are looking at 10. If we have 7 or 8 that choose to proceed.
No, I don't think it needs to be numbers. I think that's why the more information that refines the who is important to the board. In other words, we're not looking at numbers. If there were only 3, but the 3 were the top that we've identified, that we don't want to waste people's time, nor do we want to, spend time here just going through the motions. We want candidates that we feel are aligned with the county's values, and if that's only 3, I'm comfortable with 3, but that's up to the board.
Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, hi, Pat. This is Commissioner Mills. I think, please correct me if I'm wrong, Commissioner Gamble, but what we're asking for is if there is a significant change in the number for the video interviews, and your professional advice would be to gather more from that initial pool again, that's when we want to see resumes.
Correct.
But before that, we don't need to. We're just, best foot forward, hoping we're going to get a bunch of candidates that are willing to do that video process, and if not, we can check in again. Is that
Okay.
That would be correct, and then just to say that you find out who's in the pool, that the board affirms that we're doing video interviews, we're doing the personality, we're doing the cognitive, and we're doing the values. And then based upon that, we'll select our finals.
Yes.
Okay.
there we go.
Okay.
I have clear direction. Thank you. I will immediately reach out to the candidates, those 10, and go from there.
Thank you so
Very
much.
good.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you. Thanks,
Have a
Pat.
great day. Thank you.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
I think there's a hammer somewhere close by. Oh, no.
I don't know.
You have to go to
Maybe it's
the
already
three
done.
dots. Yeah, he probably
I
hung
think
up
that's what
already.
he had. Yeah.
Thanks, Jana.
It's a funny thing, you know, you do IT your whole life, you retire for a few years, you can't remember any of it.
Okay, so moving on with the Y custodial agreement.
Right. So it's always interesting to me that I can leave for 4 years and things that were on my plate before come back to being on my plate again.
10 years and come back.
That's right. We have that history, don't we? So, you know, as I have publicly stated before, maybe I shouldn't, but the original Y agreement is a complicated and not very well-done agreement that left the county with a lot of responsibilities. One of those responsibilities is based on the fact that we own the building, and so, you know, the repairs that happen there, and even the maintenance of that building falls in our camp. And back last time when I was administrator, 4 years ago, we had a significant problem, and we were spending a lot of money just trying to keep it clean, and we weren't doing a very good job. We were trying to do it with our own staff, and we would try to hire somebody that was just there at night, and they weren't well supervised, or if they were sick, then there was nobody there, and we were spending a lot of money in overtime. I think my estimates then were around $160,000 a year. So, like I don't think we have many opportunities to do here, because a lot of counties will share different responsibilities with neighboring counties. We don't have a lot of those kinds of opportunities because of our distance away from other counties. But we do have opportunities to share with other organizations in the county. And in this case, the school shares that building with the Y. And they had made an offer then to take over that responsibility, which what they had offered up was saying, we'll hire this extra person on our staff, and they will be part of a team that's always available. So if that person is out sick or on vacation, it's a team responsibility to come through, be able to react to cleaning emergencies during the day, a leaky faucet, whatever it is. And then also, they would be part of the sweep that the school custodial team does every night, so that the building would get thoroughly cleaned every night. It was a great agreement, and it worked really well because Tom Nelson at the school is a very good manager, and he runs a good team, and he made sure that the quality of the work was done. 2 years ago, I wasn't here. I don't know why that contract got lost, but it did. And we hired a private contractor on the same contract. And it's my understanding, well, it was more expensive, that individual charges us $8,000 a month. So it's $96,000 a year, and I think the school one is a little over $90,000. And the work has been less than satisfactory because it's one person and how much time they're there. There's no one supervising them going in at night to make sure they're there. So the school, once again, has approached us because it's part of their building, and they have the consequences of that kind of overlapping into their building as well, and said, we'll pick up that contract again if you're interested. So that's what's in front of us. They didn't raise the rates from when they dropped it 2 years ago. I think it's I'm not going to defend anything about the Y. I think we spend a lot of money there, and those were agreements that were made a long time ago. And I know that frustrates a lot of people, but we do have a responsibility, and it's a public health issue. And when the custodial work isn't done well, it reflects on us as the owners of the building. So I think it's a good thing to do. It's ultimately your decision. I think if we don't do this, we're probably going to have to figure out something else. So, and I don't know what that would be at this point, other than go out for another contract with someone else who we'd have to negotiate with and do that. So anyway, that's what this is, and I hope I would take any questions that you might have. I know you have some. I can tell.
If any other commissioner would like to.
Questions, comments?
Why did the school stop? Originally, the school was going to, did they partner with the Y or with the county?
It was with it was with us.
And why did, I think my recollection, it was that they became short-staffed? Was
That's what I
something
recall.
not negative in that it wasn't a
I
relationship?
think it might have been a
Oh, maybe a
combination.
relationship
Mhm.
with the Y staff.
Yeah, I think there was a combination of things there.
Oh, I remember now.
How it was explained to me was that the school lost a staff person and then didn't have the capacity. So then we had to pivot.
Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, so, long history, which everybody may be aware or not aware, but the initial with the Y and that contract, which I read yesterday, the initial one, and looking at that, and then there was a contract that was redrafted in
20.
18, and then again in 2020. And so when I look at this contract, you look at the concept, number one. You look at the concept in what has been a multi-year problem that we have to keep readdressing to try to solve it. And it is true that image of the county is supported by every action and everything we say and do. And that's important. And we want to do that substantively. We don't want to just go through the motions. And there's been a lot of issues. Issues relative to compliance, let alone going into a facility that, wow, they do a nice job of keeping this clean and fresh, and a facility that says, I'm a little hesitant to go into that locker room. And so those are real issues. How we address it is both a financial and an end outcome as to what we get for what we're paying for. The thing, I think, realistically, and I don't know, this contract was drafted by us or by the...
By us.
Yeah, by...
Attorney Hicken drafted this contract in 2020.
Yeah.
When we realized we needed to do something different because our
Right.
staff was
The
able
present
to.
one that's before us.
Oh, the one that was before us, I think they took the one that was drafted in 2020.
Okay.
And they just reissued it.
Okay.
In 2020, they just changed it, and that was in 2023. So that was 2 years ago that we've had
Okay.
the current contract in place.
And so what I would say, and if you look at the original contract, especially with the new enterprise, that the shared commitment and responsibility that came with that in the Y, that the accountability to just see how our expectations were being met and the balance of responsibility as committed and defined by the contract, a lot of that didn't happen. And that was frustrating. So we kept going back and forth, and the city and the county had made a commitment financially that had a cap on it. So citizens knew exactly how much we were spending. But then it became wide open. And I would say in the very first meeting that we had after the Y was open, and the school, the YMCA, the county, and the city all met. And we're going to say, okay, how's it going? And I asked the question, are we tracking the amount of janitorial time that Brian is spending over at the Y? And are we tracking when students use the Y facilities? And the response is no. And I said, and why are we not? Because we assume it's a wash. And I said, this is a new enterprise. We can make our assumptions, but we really need to track these things to prove that our assumptions are correctly held. And then I had it posed to me after that comment, why in the world do you have the right to even ask that question? Which is simply to say, why do I have the right as a commissioner? Have you not read the contract? Because it says that if you don't live within your means, that the citizen will pick up the difference. That's why there needs to be the accountability and the checking in. So when we come to this, our lived experience over this period of time, in this document as its representative, if we say, well, it's going to cost us $90,000 and it's going to save us $6,000 on what we're paying out of pocket right now, I don't feel, if you look at the document, that that's correct, because there's so many open ends to this, that if we're going to do floor polishing or a deep clean or any other special project, that will be charged in addition to this contract. So the janitorial thing is the day-to-day and whatever, but when we go to have our annual polish the floors, do some, whatever mold mitigation or anything else, those are over and above. We're going to get charged over and above. It's an open-ended thing, and it's based upon the Y telling us that's what they want to do. And then all of the materials that are in the, that are needed for cleaning and the refilling, the toilet paper, the towels, the soap, everything else, we pay for that.
Right.
And there's nothing in there that has an accountability that shows that in fact there's, and I'm going to just say this respectfully, the stewardship aspect of it, there's nothing in there that has this accountability. So we say, yeah, we saved $6,000. I would say, okay, normally then you would look at the end of the year, we signed a contract agreement, we anticipate this, but look at all of these other caveats. What did we actually spend? And then you'd look at it and say, we need to find a different way. This is what we just talked about with payroll. We've had lots of years of experience to see, and we need to step back and reevaluate. And so I'm not comfortable with the document as drafted. I understand the fact that because we own the building, I asked Brady, how many buildings do we own, and how many of them do we have contracts like this that we're paying for all of these things open-ended without any cap? And then if there's an increase, we don't get to look at it unless that increase exceeds 50%. 50%. I'm not comfortable with that figure either. In other words, we don't have to be called in to review it as commissioners with taxpayer monies being spent unless the increase is over 50%. I'm not comfortable with that.
Well, I would like to say, I think it's almost 2 years ago now, city, county, and school got together and we wanted to review our individual contracts with the Y. Going back to the history of those three players, one entity has never been one of the entities, the Y, has never fulfilled the contract, I won't say contracts, but being a good player in the situation. And I can't, this is from being on the outside, being a community member, not as a commissioner. I was in the school board, so I know how some of that didn't go as well as had been expected. But I remember there were handshake deals done with the Y about students having first dibs on the weight room and different parts of the facility. And there were many things that didn't come to pass. And I believe that we need to, I believe that the city and the county need to revisit our shared contract with the Y. How many people use the facility? The Y facility are from the county, greater county are from the city. What are those numbers? And as far as the school being the maintenance people, I trust the personnel at the school. They have a long history. They are in good standing with the public because they've worked on it. They take care of our children. They're part of the community. And the Y might be a real part of the community for many people, but as far as being, as an entity, of really being, not the individual people that work there, but as far as an organization that really supports Cook County for the sake of building a better community, that's their goal. I don't believe that they have proven it as an individual who's been around since the get-go of the YMCA project. So I want, if we sign a contract with the school, we should have it. No more handshake deals. We should have, even though the trust with the school is high, we need to have everything spelled out. We can't have handshake deals. This is business. This is county money. So it's not a slam, it's not a slam on the school. But I just believe that we need to be good stewards of the county dime.
So, in answer to your question about the soaps and the toilet paper and all the consumables that are used by members, this, when we tried to revisit the contract back in 2020 and clean it up and get rid of a lot of ambiguity, we had this on the table with the Y. And all along, the county's been paying for that. It was written in the original contract. And in good faith, we were trying to say, look, this is probably $5,000 or $6,000 a year that you're collecting, membership fees for, and this is stuff that your folks are actually using, so the members, we think you should pay that. We could not get them to bend on that at all. And I've never run into that kind of thing in contract negotiation before, where a group was like, yeah, we got a good deal, and we're not doing anything with that. And I think that's a broader issue, and I will investigate this business of what are the numbers that use the Y? How many people that are in there? How often are school children using it? And how often are these are members or visitors that are coming in? I'll follow up with Alex and get that information. In the short term, we still need to figure out a way to keep that building clean. So the scope of what we're discussing here is bigger than that, and I guess I'd like to find out if the board is willing to support this contract, and then I'll bring other information for the broader thing or not. That's kind of where I'm at with this.
Commissioner Gamble?
Thank you, Madam Chair. And I want to underscore, too, that we need to have respectful, honest conversations. And so if we're going to move forward in a healthy context and cultivate healthy relationships between the school, the Y, the county, the city, the community, we need to be sure that we're looking at it from the perspective of all the stakeholders. So whenever you have negative things to say, whenever you're frustrated, whenever those things cannot cloud the objective, which is to try to get it right. And it needs to be fair and balanced and equitable. And all players need to demonstrate that they're acting in good faith with common sense. So our focus here is not to deride or denigrate or whatever, but if we can't have honest conversation to address real issues, we'll never get to that healthy place. And I think the accountability, Alex is well-respected, well-liked, and leadership is the number one thing. It's what we're looking at in county administrator. You've got to have a leader that identifies the shared values amongst those partners and protects them in how we operate, which is the service we provide, the facilities, and the financial integrity. And so I think it's important not to lose sight of what we're focusing on here, but we need to see the evidence of that, and if it's not there, then we need to address it honestly, but not to address it is to abdicate our responsibility. So I would like to see the contract amended. I'd like to see numbers that help define the what-ifs that are open-ended, and I'd like a lower threshold for us to be able to assess, not 50% increase.
Sure. I'll go back and meet with the superintendent.
And see what we can do in that regard that gives us a little more defined, because all along it's been too loosey-goosey.
Sure.
And it just falls on us, and we say, well, where's the stewardship on my behalf as a citizen? So, anyway, that's what I would say.
If that's what the board would like me to do, I can do that. I can go back and look at that further, or we can move ahead. get a motion. I don't care one way or the other.
I would appreciate a revisit. I'd like to table it until we address those issues.
Sure.
And then, bring it back. I'm not trying to delay it, but I
Sure.
would like to be more protector of issues that are real issues.
Okay, I'm good with that. I'm fine with that.
And do we sign a contract for a year, for 6 months? How do you,
This
you know,
one,
look at that?
it's sort of an ongoing contract.
Okay,
It's like to be
Automatically
revisited,
renews.
automatically renews in the year.
okay. So would you have some background for our next board meeting? Because we really need to make sure that the custodial services.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have a gap there right now,
Sure.
I think.
Okay, Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, I was going to ask just about the school's position, if you have any insight on that, as far as the staffing, and if there's anything hinging on this decision?
Well, I mean, it is sort of a triangle.
Right.
They don't want to hire somebody until they know
Sure.
that there's a need for it. They had another position open, so they had it open for custodial positions right now, and if they got multiple candidates, they would maybe hire more than one.
Gotcha.
So there is a timeliness to it, and the way our board meetings are, and the way their board meetings are. They have a board meeting this week, and then not again until the middle of June. So that's kind of the timeline I'm.
Would it make sense that if given, the recommendation from the board, if the board consensus, that it would then be able to come before their board, which then we'd get that back so that our next board meeting.
The 27th.
In the 27th, we would be able to act on it.
Yeah, their board meeting is Thursday night,
Okay?
so that's a pretty short time frame.
Yeah.
It's a complicated thing for me, because I'm on the school
Yeah,
board
yeah,
too.
yeah, I understand.
This is like,
Yeah.
I'm, so
But
when.
to give you a
when-
sense of what you think,
Right,
if you
right.
came in and just say, hey, and we're trying to work at this, but we have to.
Right. Yeah, I can go back and talk with the commissioner, or with the superintendent, yeah. Yes.
Commissioner Mills?
Thank you, Chair. Are there some items that we can, you mentioned the 50%, and I greatly appreciate that. Are there some other items that we can pinpoint to change right now that might help in that discussion?
Let's just say, and I appreciate the discussion, Madam Chair, that if we were to look and see what the expense is right now, if we had an expense report in front of us, we could look and say, well, how much is this? How much is that? We have something, we don't even know what the numbers are.
Yeah.
And I'm saying, to make a decision to support something without knowing numbers is really setting yourself up. So I think there can be appreciation for the stewardship responsibility we have, and I'm just saying, all of these things that are open-ended commitments, let's give us some idea what open-ended means, if we're gonna pay it. And then let's say, this does not include special projects like semi-annual cleaning the floor. Well, what are you spending on semi-annual cleaning the floor right now? And what might be some other projects? Because we have to see the real number, as opposed to saying, whatever you got, whatever you recommend at the discretion of the YMCA, that's what we'll do, pay for. I'm not comfortable with
Well, and the reason I ask is because in the contract, the services to be provided by the school would include assistance as requested by the Cook County Maintenance Department on special projects. And so
Right.
that's benefiting us, not costing us. Even if we don't know what the cost is, having that assistance is not an additional cost, that's a benefit. And so that's what I'm trying to identify, if there's other points that, like, it's open-ended, it's an open-ended benefit at this point.
Well, no, it says in there that this contract does not include special projects which will be billed independently.
Oh, okay. There's a discrepancy then. Item 3D says provide assistance as requested by the Cook County Maintenance Department on special projects, such as scheduled periodic cleaning projects at the Cook County YMCA facility. For example, semi-annual floor maintenance, and for additional compensation is allowed in paragraph 5B. So
Right.
I'm just trying to identify the open-endedness that's a risk to the county. And that 50% absolutely is,
But the open-ended is because those will be billed in addition. That's what it's saying.
no, it's our responsibility.
It's our
Responsibility.
responsibility to do those
We don't get billed extra
maintenance.
for that. That's us. We do that.
That's us, but they're saying if we want to, instead, we can pay the school to do that for us, instead of.
Brooke's not sitting here, so I don't know if Brooke was consulted on this. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the same thing when Brian was doing whatever, and it
Right.
just got way out of hand. So I'm just saying clarity to understand
Sure.
that and be sure that, that Brooke is, I mean, I'm assuming he's read through this, I'd be comfortable with that, because I know the assumption on the front end, but then the reality, because it's something we hadn't done before. I mean, Brian was just frazzled. He was spending all this time over there. So I'm just saying.
Right, which is the reason we put this contract in place, right? Because he was working nights and. till
No,
2 in
I
the
understand
morning,
that,
right?
and, but I just want those things clarified. And if Brooke were here, he could say, so what do you think, Brooke, and what does this involve? Then we would know that. So I'm not looking to make this more complicated than it needs to be, but on the other hand, I'm not comfortable just slipping this, moving forward without some clarification. So to your point, let's look at a budget that reflects some of those costs. Let's involve Brooke in identifying what that means. And he said, I looked at that, I'm comfortable, it takes me this or whatever, and I have no problem with this contract. As
Okay.
opposed to if we make the decision like we did, and then Brian's realized, what do you want me to do? I have no time.
Right,
That's all I'm saying.
okay. So let me just make sure I understand what you're asking for. Do you want me to consult with Brooke first? Or do you want me to talk to the superintendent at the school? I've heard both things, so I just want to.
Sure.
I just want to understand if Brooke is okay with this, or this makes sense to him. You're okay with that?
Well, given the discussion, Commissioner Mills has raised here relative to
Right, of
we're
the
doing
dean,
that,
yep.
just ask that question of him. That's,
Okay.
because he's the stakeholder, he's the doer.
Right, and he's the one that brought this to me and said, yeah.
And
this
so
would
it
be a
might
good
be,
solution.
like I say, if here, he said, yeah, no, I've reviewed that, I just don't know that.
Janet,
And I should have maybe.
Could you
called.
grab Brooke?
Yeah,
That'd
I
be-
think,
that'd be
this is
great.
the second time we've gone through this contract.
Right.
And it was working well, aside from the staffing leaving.
Right.
Maybe there was some relationship stuff going on, but I'm comfortable with it. With the 50% is definitely something to reconsider. I'd be happy to knock it down to, and that's about refillable products and cleaning supplies, right? And so if we want to bring that down to 25% or 30% or whatever,
Yep.
I'd be comfortable with that. But I'm looking for those open-ended risks, and I'm having a hard time identifying them, and that's why I was asking.
Whatever the costs are for all refillables, all of those things are just generic in nature. If we were looking at a budget and attaching that to that, just like when we looked at this payroll thing, we had figures to look at what we're talking about. And if you say, we're gonna get uniformity, we're gonna have somebody dedicated, all of these things, those are all pluses, but we still need to address the fiscal end of it,
Right.
which I have to see those numbers to know what I'm committing to.
Right, and so what I'm saying is this is our commitment.
No, it's our commitment, but based upon what? And if I said, well, if you looked at it and we reviewed, like we said, if you would review annually, we were supposed to get monthly statements. We never did. And then it changed to, well, we only have to do it annually. Why you would go to annually when we never got monthly doesn't, I would short up and say, until we start seeing it here, we're not gonna go to annually. But anyway, my point is, we can't say umbrella-wise, it's our commitment and whatever it costs. That's what we've been doing. We need to see numbers that inform that decision. That's all I'm saying.
But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, we have made the commitment already. This is our building, and it is our responsibility to clean and maintain the building. And so I'm looking for a way to do that by minimizing the risk to our budget and our organization. And I'm having a hard time seeing the risks, considering we've already made this commitment. We're just looking for a better way to fulfill it.
No, there's no financial, nothing to support it.
Support what?
Support what the risk is. You said to our budget, there's no numbers to even know how it affects budget. What you're saying is we've made the commit, we have the responsibility. I can have a responsibility for something, but I can look at it from a financial standpoint to make sure that it's good stewardship of dollars. Meeting my responsibility with an awareness of cost. We have no awareness of cost. What we've got is a commitment. We're saying, it's our commitment, so whatever it is. And I'm saying, no, that's not good stewardship financially. We will meet our obligation, but we have a right to know cost and what we're saying yes to.
And I think that's maybe a conversation about our commitment with the why, but this is about the county and the school providing a service for the county to meet the county's current obligation. And so I think this is a step in the right direction. I understand the desire for more information, and again, I think that's important and critical, frankly, but that's in a different contract for our obligations. This one's just having a buddy, having a partner to come share this responsibility.
Commissioner Sullivan?
So the way I'm looking at it, given what we're listening to, there are two things. And one is clearly the percentage, wanting to lower that from 50%. And so I think that to have Administrator Rogers converse with the superintendent and go through that process, and that maybe is something that hopefully can be done in a relatively short period. I think the second piece is getting data, getting budget information from Brooke. I don't know that we have information from the past from Brian. I'm not sure how he tracked that. And so I would want to have at our next board meeting, when we look at perhaps a different percentage on this contract, to have Brooke then meet with us and talk about what information that he might be able to put together.
Brooke is on his way here.
Good.
So,
All right.
I can talk about something else, and we can come back to this.
I think that would be
Would that be good?
very good.
Now that Dustin's left, maybe we should do the transfer station.
Yeah.
He hasn't left, his water bottle is here.
Here comes Brooke.
Oh, here comes Brooke. All right. Hey, Brooke. Thanks for running back from where we were.
Oh, I was over at the highway department going over a couple things.
Okay, so we've been talking about the contract, the proposed contract with the school to do the cleaning at the Y.
Yep.
And Commissioner Gamble has raised a couple of issues in this contract. One of them would have been about, and you don't have it in front of you, but it would have been about services provided. So like when you have annual kinds of things that you do, like waxing of floors or something, there was, it referenced in 5B that you could, if you wanted to, contract with the school to do that at a rate of $40 an hour. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. We currently still continue to do that. So this summer, the old gym that we own now is scheduled for a resurface along with their gyms. So they'll do their gyms and then they move right into our gyms and redo ours as well.
And then that is something that we could do, but they do it for us, or how does that work?
It's with a contractor, and then they assist the contractor.
No,
So,
you're talking about resurfacing the gym floor, though. I'm talking
Correct.
about like waxing the floors in the main areas.
oh, yeah, yeah. That's always been, we don't have the burnishing equipment to scrape it and redo it. We don't have that equipment. That's something that's always been handled by a contractor.
Okay.
But how about, as the language states it, maybe if you read the language in that contract, an example, it says, semi-annual.
Right. It says, provide assistance as requested by the Cook County Maintenance Department on special projects, such as scheduled periodic cleaning projects at the Y. For example, semi-annual floor maintenance as additional compensation that's allowed, so.
Yeah, and that's at our discretion. So we haven't been, it hasn't been completed semi-annually. They had a contractor come in before my time, I believe it was 4 or 5 years ago, and use a new product on those instead of just burnishing with wax like it's normally done. Used a new product that has lasted quite some time, and they haven't had to redo it since.
Okay.
Any idea what that cost?
I don't know what that cost was. Yeah, no, that was, I'd have to ask. I'd go to Brady and ask
And
him.
Brooke, is it your understanding in the contract, if you've reviewed this contract, that those special projects that we would have to do that get billed in addition to the contract to pay for the custodial service, that we have the option either paying in addition or doing it and paying the wage of whoever's doing it from the county? Is that
Yes,
your
if-
understanding?
If we have the equipment and the skill set to do it. Some of the things we can, some of the things we will not be able to.
Okay, and from my standpoint, if I had a budget from the YMCA that showed, you got that budget from the YMCA?
So Brady has sent all the commissioners and our county administrator
My computer with
the
me.
budget,
That's okay. You can,
Okay.
just talk to it.
just so that we do have some numbers there.
Yeah, it just, my sense of things in reviewing that contract is there's a lot of open-ended things that talk about things generally, but do not put dollars next to it, so it's hard to know what you're committing to.
Yeah. I mean, it would be just like any other project I would do. I don't know how it was done in the past, but it'd be just like any other project where if it's over 5,000, I'll have to, they'll bid it, and then I'll have to come to you guys for approval of that project.
Yeah.
That's my understanding on how it would work. I mean, with the current contract we're under with the current cleaner, those projects are still getting completed by the school.
And so what I'm looking for, if the language in there says that we give the county first right of refusal on these projects, but if you're too busy or whatever, don't have the equipment, then they can contract. Do we contract that, or did they contract that?
They do.
All right, they contract that, and then the language as it states is that if we choose not to do it, if you do it, we're paying you or whomever. If they do it, then that's an add-on bill
Correct.
that comes in this contract.
Yep.
And that's where understanding, what do you think that would be? If we're talking about a fleet of cars, and you say you come and you want 6 new cars, and you say, because it's our obligation to have to provide those for staff, if you don't give us any financial numbers, we don't know what we're saying yes to.
Right.
So, I mean, the county could contract with someone else, right?
Correct.
But in this case, in the contract, the school is committing it to being $40 an hour. It says that we'll pay $40 an hour, or the actual.
Which is a bargain.
Right.
For us.
Right.
Yeah. If we're paying $40 an hour, I mean, I've got,
Well, it says, or the actual cost,
yeah,
including.
it would be the actual cost,
Commissioner Mills?
Yeah, so just so we can get some numbers out there for perspective, Brady sent out the actual 2023, the 2024 work budget, the actual 2024, the 2025 work budget, and then it looks like the 2026 is in process here. And so for professional contract services in 2023, it was $164,538. In 2024, the professional contract services were $110,000. That was the budget. The actual was $107,487. And so the work budget for 2025 is $110,000. I'm assuming that includes the janitorial, that's what that
What's the?
janitorial contract. This is professional contract services.
It might have, that one might have included other things.
Oh, yeah, in
Oh, for
addition.
sure, it
did.
included other
Oh,
things,
in
yeah.
addition, that's what I'm
Yeah.
saying, to try to get a grasp of these
You
costs.
almost have to do the whole breakdown and see where all that
Yeah,
money
see-
went.
See
Yeah.
what they
Yeah.
are.
Because.
And I haven't gone through that yet.
Yeah.
I mean, the budget was set when I came on, so I haven't started
That
digging
in-
into the why.
Yeah, that 164 included a $51,000 boiler repair. This is the school's boiler, which we have a joint powers on those boiler systems. So that's why it's in professional services, because it's part of that.
And so, I mean, I guess barring the 2023, we've got 110,000, 107,000, and then 110,000. For repairs and maintenance, for 2024 work budget, it's 25,000. The actual was 39,000. In 2025, our work budget is 31,000. And so I don't know if there's any cleaning supplies in that category, but that seems like the biggest categories. The other one could be other supplies / small equipment.
Probably other supplies.
Yep.
wouldn't it?
Yep.
And so in 2024, the work budget was 35,000. The actual was 42,000, so a difference of $7,000. And then for 2025 works budget, it's $40,000. So this gives some perspective. It doesn't look like anything is way out of line. And I agree, we need to tighten up our contracts to get things more clearly defined. But again, I was pleased with the improvement the first go around with it. I was disappointed that staff was lost, but that was happening all over everywhere. And I'm excited now again to reinstate this contract. And I think our costs are nothing alarming.
My
Okay,
recommend,
so what we have right now before us was discussion on providing custodial services, which is now branched out to other areas of the budgeting and everything. So if Administrator Rogers will come forth for the next meeting, we'll table this for now and bring some other information. We'll have a chance to, all of us, look at the budget, and Brooke also to look at the budget, and then know how we're going to proceed with, first of all, custodial services, and then later on look at the overall picture, as Commissioner Gamble is alluding to.
That's going to be a big conversation.
yeah, it will be.
Yeah, and again, I want to make sure the timing of this
Yeah.
is not messing something up, because as I've said, I'm comfortable with this one. And if it's school board Thursday and then us for another week, and then that's no school board until June,
Yeah.
and I don't know when they're
June.
trying to hire.
No,
Yeah.
it would be, my understanding of the conversation is that Rena, being a member of the school board, would bring this before the school board, just say this after the discussion of the board, and we'd like to see these numbers and address the percentage issue, and then we will address it at our next board, which is May, and at that point, we'd approve it. Or whatever.
So the real question still hanging out there is the
And-
50%.
Yeah, 50%.
Right, and I wanted to be sure that you're clear on what we're asking. And from
Yeah,
my
I'm-
standpoint,
I'm
any figures that they can give that are specific to those line items identified in the contract,
Okay.
and then the percentage at which we get to review that.
So the only line items I'm aware of that you're talking about is this
Percentage.
Well,
which could easily be done, but the other one is,
is we pay for all the supplies, and the other is,
well, but that's our contract with the Y. That's not I mean, are you talking about cleaning supplies?
well, just everything in the refillables and everything.
Right,
What
but-
is
That's
that
the Y.
amount?
That's
That's
our
not-
contract with the Y.
Yeah, we
That's not our
currently,
contract
we
with the
currently pay
school.
for that.
And do you
and-
know
and-
what we're paying annually?
No, because it's, I'd have to talk to Brady. With the way we code everything for the Y, the same code. So we don't get a breakdown of all the different
Right.
bits and pieces. So when I have specific questions about how much we're paying for water treatment, boiler water, all of that type of stuff, I go to Bev and Brady, and they can generally
All
give
I'm
me the
asking
numbers.
to the extent, not to make it too complicated and time-consuming, but if it's a matter, we can pull any figures
Right.
that go with those, that would
Yeah,
be
yeah.
helpful.
So-
It's-
It should be easy. I can have them pull from the last few years,
I'd
and I
appreciate
can
it.
go through it, and,
Yeah,
you know,
So-
it's not that difficult.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
there's two different numbers here. One is the supplies to keep the floor clean, to, clean the toilets and the sinks. And that's something that we have to do as part of the maintenance. And so this contract, we've set it, because the school, if they were to do it, they know when those supplies are low, and they would reorder them, and they would let us know if there was a significant increase in price, which is the 50%. That we can change. I don't think that's a big deal.
Yeah, we've changed.
We could have
yeah.
them notify us anytime there was a price change if we wanted to. The other thing that you're talking about, the refillables, the toilet paper, the paper towels, those are in our contract with the Y. Those are things that the members consume, and as I mentioned earlier, we were not able to get them to change that.
No, I understand that, but we should know what that is.
We should, but it doesn't have an impact on this contract.
And
That was
we'll-
my point. yeah.
I planned on revisiting that, Gary, because we did just change suppliers here in the courthouse to a significant cost savings, went from Delco, which is a giant global company, to Twin Ports Paper, which is a much smaller
Yeah.
in Duluth Superior area. So we've already changed and had a cost savings on that. And I've looked at doing it at the Y, but just waiting till all this gets kind of played out. And then I'll look at changing everything over there as well for another cost savings.
It would be helpful, and
Yeah.
especially from, the perception, from the people that are funding this, that they should know, what is that,
And I totally agree with you. That's why we tried to do it last time.
Yeah,
But.
I understand the
this-
frustration.
But there are, these are really two
Yeah.
different things that don't affect
Well,
each other.
yeah.
Yeah, and on that note, I'd like to make a motion to approve the joint powers agreement with the school and the Y, and changing the 50% down to 30%.
Is there a motion to support that?
I think we're just kind of shooting in the dark when we're thinking about a percentage. I'd like the school district to talk about what is reasonable. I think it's a question for the school because they sent this contract to us.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
I don't think that, the time thing, we're trying to be sensitive to it, but I think the timing, looking at the scheduling things, we can table it and make that decision in May, but we can make more informed decision. I'd love to write that up for relationships that I have, because it's one-sided, and you've basically testified to that, in the negotiating of it.
Yeah, the Y contract is very one-sided.
Yeah, yeah.
This is a different,
This
this
is a
is
school.
something different.
I think it's really important that we distinguish the difference, because I feel like you're blending these, and that's derailing, I
Well,
think.
But it is the connection, to the Y. This would not be happening if it wasn't for the Y.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, the Y wouldn't be here if we weren't all here. I mean, we're all connected, but this contract is like any other shared resource between the school and the county, say, well, I guess there is probably no other example, but say the tennis courts, that would be city, county, and it's just kind of like that. But if there's another aspect, say the city's street removal or law enforcement contracts, that's separate from the tennis court, but it's connected because it's a relationship with the city, but it's a separate issue. And so I'm just feeling frustrated that we're blending these two when ultimately it's just the relationship between the school and.
I could
Y.
define it very, very clearly why I think it's important as to, you've got the nexus between the relationship between the school, the county, the city, whatever, which is the bigger issue. But this contract is a contract that doesn't have numbers other than the 50% thing. It's an open-end thing that we don't have anything. If Brooke comes and says, I need new cars, and we just say, well, that's our obligation to staff, and there's nothing to support it, I'm not comfortable with that. I need to know that he's done his homework, and then when I call up and ask him questions, can you tell me what the projected 70% contribution would be? And do we have other options? That makes an informed decision. I feel that I'm being a better steward with information, especially when it relates to dollars.
Attorney Peterson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a suggestion, and that is that rather than play with percent, which percent of the cost could change per item, if the packaging changes, what are we assessing at 50%? So does your office have the capacity to approve each purchase agreement before the school orders it? If they send them over for approval, are you comfortable approving that cost?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, we could do that, yeah.
That's a good suggestion.
I mean, the cost is just consumables,
Right.
you know, and
Refillable
it's pretty much what we're doing right now is he's going through Delco, so we're getting the
Just having that
invoices.
oversight, given the fact that
Yeah.
we have and I think, Rena, if you were to communicate that as to a percentage that the board's, based upon the recommendation of
Well,
our
maybe a
attorney.
rewording that Attorney
Yeah, but if you-
Peterson would have for us.
Yeah.
If you could do that, then I can get that over to the school. I think this was more for us to know if there was going to be a bigger charge. I think
Yeah,
that's why
yeah,
that wasn't
yeah.
there.
I mean, that was the
Um,
contract they were working under before.
Right, right.
We just kind of brought it back into play.
I don't think they would have an issue with just
No.
sending us over
No.
the things.
No,
So we have a motion on the floor to accept this, or to approve the joint powers for ISD 166 to provide custodial services. So far, I've heard no second, but I will second it. With the idea that Administrator Rogers will give us information pending on other items, because this has gone into a bigger area. And thank you, Brooke, for on the spot coming up here to help us understand your role in this. But I think, I agree with Commissioner Mills, this is a separate thing right now with some caveat of additional information. And so, any further questions or comments?
The only other thing I just want to share is we have the $90,000 in there annually. And then we also have the information from what we spend from Brady here, and that's 110,000, 107, 110, that's budgeted for. So within that is kind of some of those cleaning supplies, and more details, the better, but it's all, I feel like, tracking pretty consistently here, aside from, say, a boiler replacement or something like that, and that's a whole nother deal. But I feel like we have a decent handle on these costs, and we've been doing it. So I just don't see where the rub is, aside from that bigger picture, which I agree is very much worth looking at, so.
Any other comments before the vote?
I still like the idea of having Attorney Peterson look at that language. I think what she came up with is really a good idea.
I'm happy to amend my motion instead of the 30% to have it reviewed by our maintenance director.
So we'll amend that motion to include that. Any other questions or comments? Then I will ask for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Opposed? Same sign. It passed 3-2, 2 being against. Thank you.
And I'd like to say the reason being it's the process. This is a business transaction, business. It's not anything, and thankfully, we know we have a trusted person to sign on the other side. I mean, this is wonderful, but it's business, and this is money, and it's nothing personal, it's money, so we have a fiduciary responsibility to know where we are. Sure, we trust the school, that's great, but you don't do business on a handshake between entities. I mean, people are one thing, but between entities. It needs to be spelled out ahead of time and confirmed, and so for that reason, I voted no.
Okay, thanks so much for coming up and filling us in,
Yep.
and we all have a little budgeting work to do.
Yep.
So thank you.
Thanks, Brooke. Okay. The next item is Transfer Station Construction Administration. So back, I want to say September, October? Yeah, come on, you can come on up, Dustin, on this one. We had and I was on the other side of the table at that time. I'm way woven into too many of
You're
these things.
everywhere.
right?
You're everywhere.
I'm everywhere. We brought to the board that we had raised $3.2 million, and now here's what we needed help, or we needed the county to kind of figure out how they were going to participate, or if they were going to participate. And at that time, the board decided, we had a proposed contract from R.W. Fern Associates to finish all of the architecture drawings and engineering drawings so that we could get accurate estimates of what was left, because we didn't know. And so at that time, the regular architecture contract has this piece in it, which is required for them professionally, which is basically a construction administration piece of that. And that was for the amount of $79,840. We said, we have $200,000. That's what you have to do these plans for. And they gave us a kind of a deal on that. But because we didn't know if we were actually going to go to construction at that point, we took this piece out of it with the idea that we would amend it back in later if we decided to do construction. And so a couple of people have asked me the question, what's the difference between, aren't we hiring Johnson Wilson to do construction management? And there's really a significant difference between those two, and I just kind of like to kind of talk about what we get with construction administration that we don't get with construction management. Construction management is kind of like a ringleader. They're the project manager. They're scheduling the contractors. They're making sure that, that the concrete is poured before you start putting in plumbing and things like that. So they're arranging those time schedules, making sure that people come and go, and if there's delays, communicating with the other people. So they're kind of a project coordinator, project manager on the project. Very essential when you have lots of contractors like we do. The project administration, on the other hand, is the architects ensuring that all the things that are happening, that are being created for this project, meet the specs that they laid out, that they and the engineers laid out. And the one that kind of stood out to me the most were something called shop diagrams, or shop drawings. I didn't even quite know what that was until I asked the question. So we have, for instance, fabricated parts coming. We have precast walls that are going to be made. And those precast walls are made by a subcontractor or a vendor somewhere else who's going to make them according to the architectural drawings. In order to do that for their equipment, for their staff, they take the architectural drawings and they create shop drawings that make sense in their environment to do that. Part of this contract says, we're going to look at their shop drawings and make sure they actually match what we told them to do. It's that kind of review, so that when those pieces, those very expensive precast pieces get here, the doors are in the right place, the places for the outlets in the right place, there's the right amount of rebar in it, that was specified by the contractor. And they do that before a mistake is made by reviewing the shop diagrams. Very important piece of work to make sure in a building like this that's so complicated and complex to get that right. The other things that they do are things like they provide a bi-weekly report with photos. So they will come up here every 2 weeks in addition to the construction manager, but they will come up here and inspect the pieces to make sure they're being done right and progress on that. And they will provide that back to us in a bi-weekly report with photographs throughout construction. Toward the end of the project, they do a punch list tour where they review closeout documents, payment applications, making sure that we're not being billed for things before they actually happened, but that the work is actually being completed in a satisfactory way. Okay, so and when the construction manager or the contractor has questions about the plans that are unclear, they're the ultimate source of that information. So in order for us to be able to make them liable for their drawings and what they do, if there is any problem, they need to have this role, this role. And again, this was something that we pulled out because we didn't know if we were going to go forward, and always with the understanding that if we were going to go forward, it would be amended back in. So it's just not something new. It's just, and I think the reason there was some confusion about it is because we have a construction manager as well, and which is also what we should have. But did I cover that okay, Dustin?
I think you did a great job. There really isn't a lot to add besides the fact that R.W. Ferdinand Associates really is double checking the work that Johnson Wilson is doing and making sure that what they were asked to do was done correctly. So in their bi-weekly meetings, they'll go around, they'll review the work that was done, make sure that it matches the plans, and then approve that part for payment. And until that part of the project is done correctly, payment can't be made for that part of the project. So they're looking at their plans, looking at the work, confirming it, approving it for payment. So I don't know if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
So that is ensuring quality control as we go along. So when we get to any part of the project, we don't see that, oh, look, the opening for the overhead door is not plumb.
Right.
What do we do? And we've had county buildings built where the walls were not plumb, and just recently. But, so this is ensuring that we will have a final product that should last as long as it could last based on the quality of the materials.
Correct, and I think what this is doing is putting the responsibility of the project back on the architect and the construction manager. Their responsibility is to work back and forth and make sure that the project is built to specs.
Right.
And then it allows us to hold them responsible for any issues that there may be.
And
I think
we-
there's a couple of projects, you know, I don't know if you want to use them for an example, but a couple of projects where maybe if this part would have been done,
Sure.
it may be.
Back to our favorite project, the Y, yeah.
I didn't even want to bring it up. but-
Where we didn't have that kind of oversight, and later we had holes in the roof and a lot of other
For
things.
the Hovland Garage.
Right, where we've had a lot of different pieces of that. You know, the other thing that they are available to do, because inevitably there are things that need to be adjusted as the project goes along. So if there's something like the size of a door something needs to be changed, the architects then go back to their drawings and make those adjustments and then communicate it on down. So, you know, it's kind of that oversight from the people who've designed the building that's pretty essential, really. So, any other?
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. So, I mean, if you have a construction company that has a good reputation, and you got architects that has a good reputation, then in that scenario, you would assume you'd have a good outcome.
We hope so.
But what you're doing, it's like you buy an expensive piece of equipment, and they ask you, do you want to buy insurance? And this is the insurance that both of those partners are doing their job. Is their role to review prior to the problem?
Yes,
So that they're checking it both on the front end, and then they're checking it on the back end, which is an assurance, because our experience hasn't been a good one. And I would say that if you look at projects, what's the percentage of projects that have this position, because they've learned that it's an insurance when you're investing this kind of money to make sure you get what you're looking for. And what we found in our experience previous, we were constantly haggling back and forth, and whose responsibility, and we found that every change that was made to try to get them to get what we expected, we had to pay for their time to make the change. It just was not a good contract, and it was not managed well. negative experiences tend to shift the pendulum, so you go the other extreme and you overpay to try to protect against it. But in this context, given our lived experience, and if you looked at business and say, does it make sense, to do this or not, I think that's another assurance that this is wise stewardship, and we don't want to have to be dealing with problems as a thorn in the flesh moving forward. We want to get it right the first time, so.
And Commissioner Gamble, just to add on to that, I think this takes some of the decision-making away from the subcontractors that are working on the project. When they're just looking at a set of plans, should we do it this way or should we do it
Yeah.
that way? Here you have somebody on staff that can answer those questions.
Yeah.
And then, on top of that, if there were changes that needed to be made by the architect, we're going back to them and we're paying an hourly rate to do that work if, on the plans, if something needed to be done, if it was a shop drawing or a change because we found that two doors are going to hit each other, something like that. So some of those expenses were going to happen anyways, and this allows them to come up and double check the work. So I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Madam Chair, just a follow-up statement that you said, Rena, that in the process, you were mindful of this, but you'd pulled it out because you didn't know if da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. I don't know, respectfully, I don't know that we were necessarily aware of that through this process.
We were. That happened before you were actually on the board.
Okay. In other words, the
last
board
fall.
was
Right,
aware that
Right,
we'd pulled it out.
because
Absolutely.
we were signing a contract for $200,000 to finish the
Yeah.
plans, and this was in that contract.
Yeah.
So we pulled this out. And in reality, an architecture contract, and you'll probably see it in the one with BKV, this would be in there. This,
Yeah,
because this
yeah.
is their state obligation
Yeah.
to do this. We pulled it out at the time so that the contract reflected what we were asking them to do, knowing full well if we went forward, we were going to add it back in.
And that was my whole point. I was just going to
Right.
recommend going forward that we'd be aware of that, but again,
Right.
given the
Yeah,
situation, that's,
It was just
I
one of
wasn't
those.
here, so
yeah.
as long as the board's aware, then that's good. I appreciate the process, and it's always been very forthright and open, and this just, again, underscores that fact. Thank you.
This was a 2-year process,
Yeah.
bit by bit. Commissioner White was involved, and when we knew that we weren't sure about the money, the almost 80,000, we better pull back, wait and see. So it's a credit to the board members and to the project manager here, everybody included. And so if there isn't any other discussion, I'll hear a motion on this. Commissioner Sullivan?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal to amend the existing contract with R.W. Fern Associates and Consultants to add the construction administration services back for the transfer station at the cost of $79,840.
Is there a second?
I'll support it, Madam Chair. I just felt that those maybe that were informed and knew would be better in the position to support that because they were part of that process. But having had the discussion, I'm comfortable supporting that.
Okay. Any further questions or comments?
Well, I have a comment before or after. It's just that it's sort of like we all buy house insurance, or we all buy car insurance because you have to, it's a law. And admittedly, if you have a really good architect and a really good contractor, there shouldn't be any issues. We should all just work, but it doesn't. Houses burn down, trees fall on cars. You need that for that one in whatever the odds are. It's better than ending up with a product that's not as good as it should be. That's all.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion passes unanimously. However, I have a question.
Yes.
When will this start? Do we have another step that we need to
Well,
go through?
It was the meeting that you were gone. Some of the bids had come forward and got approved. The second round of bids, if you'll all remember, was going to go out. I think it was somewhere 30 to 40% of the remainder of the project. Those are actually due today at 2 o'clock. So maybe not by the end of the day today, but tomorrow we should have a pretty good idea where we're sitting budget-wise. The contracts for that first percentage of the project are kind of hovering there, just waiting to be signed, and the second they're signed, they're ready to go. We were also waiting on road bands as well for the dirt work. So,
Okay. Good news.
all right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dustin. So just a couple of other updates. Brady and I put together a draft on some kind of budget guidelines that we thought made sense right now in this kind of uncertain time. We took those to the Budget and Facilities Advisory Committee. I always forget that, I always have to think about and facilities, because when I was here before, that part wasn't in there. And had a really good discussion. We had a second meeting, moved it up so that we could get this out to people in a timely way. Really great discussion, made some modifications. So that's gonna be on our agenda at the COW next week, and that committee will be here to join us in that conversation. Talk about, from the community perspective, what that is. So I'm excited about that discussion, and I think it's, for me, it's not just about how to fill out your budget. It's about how your budget, the right questions commissioners should be asking of people as we go along, if there are changes throughout the budgeting process, but then also next year, as we're using those budgets, and if there's some unexpected cut and we have to make changes, those questions still apply. And the understanding about what your services are, where your funding is, what your options are, is all kind of embedded in this. And I think those things will be helpful, not just now, but for the next year and a half. And possibly, in an ongoing way, this will be a framework that helps that discussion be more, more substantive and more strategic. And so I'm anxious to have that conversation with you all. On April 22nd, there's an open house at the county from 5 to 7. May, I'm sorry, I wrote April. You know what? I'm sorry, you guys. I just can't even keep track of anything like that. May, right? May 22nd. There's a open house with BKV to show about the kind of final plans and materials and to answer questions about the law enforcement expansion. So by that date, they will have their final plans. They'll be in front of you the following week on the 27th with that final information, and they'll be asking you at that time to approve them going out for bid for those pieces. So we're getting, kind of closing in on that project right now. And then one other thing, we had a community leadership meeting this last week over at City Hall, and had a lot of people just mostly sharing about what they see in their budgets, and with kind of the uncertainty that's out there between the state and the Fed. And it was, I think, a great opportunity to hear from everybody and see where people are at, and what they're worried about or what they're not worried about. You get sort of the extremes. You get the city, which doesn't really rely on state or federal money, so they're like, yeah, we're not worried. We have a new liquor store. We're not worried. But that's pretty much what they said.
And they said, before you leave, go to the store.
Yeah. They said, the rest of you go drown your sorrows. And then Tracy kind of took that back and said she was just kidding, but I think she meant it. But for me, when I hear that, I look at all those partners out there, and I see, if we have to make a cut somewhere, where are those partners that we could maybe work together with to provide a service? And I really think this is that time to look across to the clinics, to maybe the not-for-profits, to Portage, to whoever it is, to say, if one of us loses some funding, or we've lost an employee, or something happens, who else is doing something similar that we might be able to bond with? And I really think this is that time. We did that really well during COVID in this community, and I think, it's useful it's a useful activity for us, even if we're not in a crisis. So I appreciated that conversation very much. Anyway, I think that's all I have for now. I've spoken more than I want to now.
Thank you for the updating. At this time, if we have any commissioner reports, meeting updates, Commissioner Sullivan?
Certainly. Thank you. So at the beginning of the month, had an opportunity to visit with CCLEP, the Cook County Local Energy Project, and we talked at length about how we're partnering with Andrea Orist and Healthy Housing, the HRA, and also Shane Steele with the city, and looking at the potential of how do we get extra funds and then find contractors to do energy envelope projects for people in our community. We feel like that might be a project for the future that would work quite well, given that some of the large federal grants that deal in particular with housing are going away. And so we had good discussion about that. And then tonight, CCLEP is hosting a workshop with Solar United for community members who are looking to add solar, and that will be at the community center at 6:30. We had a Firewise meeting, and Brady shared information about our financial situation, what grants are available, mostly what grants are not available for us at this time. And we did have an opportunity to talk with Paramount Planning, who is providing our Firewise coordination. Steve Gankakrix is our new Firewise coordinator, and he'll be coming to the county. He's already been here on a couple of occasions. He was at our Emergency Services Conference. And at that Emergency Services Conference, it was absolutely the best I've attended in my tenure. We talked a lot about concerns related to FEMA, cancellation of some of the funds, how we work together with the DNR, all of our partners that remain at the U.S. Forest Service, and just great training. And they did provide an opportunity for armed intruder training for county employees who missed that last time around. So it was really nice to have a chance for people to sign up. We had the U.S. Forest Service open house. There was one in Isabella, one mid-trail, and then another one held in Tofty, and Tom Hall came with the crews, both from the remaining crews from Gunflint and from Tofty, talked about what services they'll provide in the boundary waters, what will not be provided. For example, there won't be trail clearing on portages. And so talking about, how do you deal with that? Well, you really can't. You can't take a chainsaw and clear a trail. You note that there is a problem on a portage, and then you bring that information back to the U.S. Forest Service. But they talked about cleaning latrines, how they've been working on making sure that everyone is aware that they can't pick up permits at the ranger station here in Grand Marais, and they feel confident that although it might not run as smoothly as normal, that the other providers for permits will be able to handle services. We talked about the staff shortages and just general concerns and what services aren't available at this time. Gunflint Trail Scenic Byway met. We talked a lot about the construction along the Gunflint, and in particular reiterated for everyone the movement of emergency vehicles and the importance of following those lights. Don't sit there thinking even in the middle of the night somebody's not coming, so you're going to run that red light and go down into town or up the hill. We need to absolutely, for security and safety reasons, follow those lights. And lastly, the airport open house last night, 49 people here. Some of the 15 boards that were present last night remain here. I'll take them to the airport at the end of the day, but I wanted for all of you here as commissioners who were unable to attend last night to take a look at those, and just know that It was a good turnout, lots of good questions, and great feedback from our community. So hats off to everybody that participated. And that would be the end of my report.
Anyone else? Commissioner White?
This was another phone call. Excuse me.
Bless you.
That I got. It's red flag weather. And this was a person down the road in the neighborhood. Adjacent property had been recently sold to somebody unknown. And it was observed, the caller observed that there was a man and a woman, and they were like trying to pitch a tent in the tall grasses. The caller knew that the owner of that the site had been sold, the previous owners had died or something like that, and just assumed that this must be relatives that had come up to visit. Well, being the neighbor as she is, she introduced herself only to find out that these people were just trespassing, and they were going to pitch a tent and have a campfire. And that's the issue. Nobody should have a campfire anywhere in this county, and that word needs to get out. The different cabins that I take care of or have contact with people, no fires, no campfires, like no, 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 because it seems that people don't pay attention. They don't live here. So somehow the word has to get out to our visitors that you don't roast marshmallows. And that's about it.
Any other reports from committees or concerns? Commissioner Gamble?
Yeah, to your point, thank you, Madam Chair. To your comment, our Smokey the Bear, yeah, we have one up in Hovland, and we've got,
They're
but if it says fire danger, there's nothing really, it can say high, but if people don't translate that, it'd be good if there was some way that said when it's in this range, that means no open fires. I mean, something that would reinforce that, because people aren't connecting the dots. If it's high, no campfires. We have a little hill with wildflowers that I like to burn. I haven't been able to burn it for the last 3 years, and I always try to burn it with some snow still. And then we get a dump of snow, and then I can't, and now we're in the permit period, and then I call, and the decision is made in Grand Rapids, Minnesota, and we can have rain here and rain here, and I said, I should be able to burn, so the Forest Service gives me a permit, but I can't activate it because it's no burning. Anyway, just to mention, how can we get that word out? But the other thing I was going to comment on, and Rena had mentioned it in the community leadership, I felt that the breadth of the participation was good, and a lot of that was thanks to you, that you recognized who was there so that they had opportunity. And to your point of partnershiping, and I had attended the NACO conference on how to create resilient counties, and those partnerships are huge. You're more inclined to partner with people that you know and have identified with. So I think that discussion was good. It's good to give everybody a voice so that we have appreciation and awareness, and then we're more mindful of how we might be able to participate. So as opposed to going through the motion, and I know there was a lot of talk about do we or don't we or whatever, and some that don't want to, but the more we see substance that contributes to those things, the more we'll be able to use that resource moving forward. So I thought that was very good. Some of the other committee assignments and things I'll address in public health.
I have seen at some forestry offices, their sign out front will be a needle and it'll go high. So that's what I have seen. I don't know where you're referring to, which.
Oh, up the
sign
Arrowhead
it is.
Trail, there's
Yeah.
one
Oh.
big
okay.
sign.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
okay.
right as you're coming up the trail.
Yeah.
But you know, some of this is just common sense, that I think a lot of the people that come up here, we see a lack of anyway, because they just, and we see it in other ways too, not just in when they build fires, but.
When they, excuse me, when they shoot guns, target shoot.
Yeah.
Like, I have no faith that they're not pointing towards my house, just because they can't see my house. You know, so I don't know how you, I don't know. City people have different perspectives, that's all.
Any other committee reports? Commissioner Miller?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, so on the EDA, I'm on the TAC Harbor Subcommittee, and that's looking at the redevelopment of that site. And so we put out an RFP for someone to lead that strategic planning, and we have funding that our previous EDA director had secured. And we got those proposals and went through, and we have a favorite, or a preferred, I'd say, and there's going to be an interview with them today. Actually, it's probably over by now. And then we'll hopefully be able to move ahead with that, so stay tuned there. That'll be a big process, and trying to get as many members of the community involved, and especially on the west end in Schroeder Township, because that's where it's at. But it certainly will affect, into Lake County as well, potentially, and but the whole county tax base is greatly affected by the closure of Tack Harbor. So, also Labor Management Committee is pretty smooth. We have been kind of knocking things out with a punch list, and now we're at a point where there's not a whole lot of issues, but having fairly regular meetings is really important, just to keep those relationships going in case there are issues that come up before negotiations, because sometimes in negotiations issues come up that maybe aren't appropriate in negotiations, but still should be addressed. And so that's part of the reason for this particular committee, but just to have those relationships. And met the new, or I guess I wasn't there, but virtually met the new 49ers business agent, and pretty impressed, very enthusiastic individual with lots of great ideas. So looking forward to meeting or working with him. Also, I still continue to sit on the Department of Children and Youth and Families intergovernmental committee, and had some meetings with the commissioner of Minute, which is the Minnesota IT department, and the social services update, software update is top on everyone's mind, and so there's a lot of concerns about this new agency integrating or forming, or just where does that all fit in, and so trying to really get ahead of that. And there's been some frustrations from different directors around the county. Just they feel like there's been a lack of communication there and back and forth, but it's just a really big and slow process. And so I'd say the state's aware of it and doing their darndest, but now, especially with some of the state challenges, it will be maybe even trickier. But hopefully that'll just keep progressing, and they are receptive to the feedback, and so that's really encouraging. And then also, I just wanted to ask if we were going to invite the Hub Board to come to a committee of the whole and kind of talk about their organization, because they had requested that, and I thought it could be really good just to get a better overview of their needs and their expectations, and where we fit into all that. So just wanted to bring that up again.
Would it be okay if we did that in June?
I'm sure, yeah, I'm sure they're just happy
Because
for any.
we got kind of a full one.
Yeah, and I'm just bringing it up again. Commissioner White's probably a better reference point for that.
And they did just talk about that yesterday.
Okay, good.
They'd like to come, and they would
Yeah.
also like, AEOA out of Virginia has requested an audience with us also
Oh,
at
good.
some point.
Good,
So, I don't know if they should be combined or whatever, but
AEOA requesting in conjunction with the hub, or requesting independent?
independent.
With us.
Independent audience with us
Okay.
to go over what they do. There had been a request from them for some contribution to help for the renovation and build out of a affordable housing and mental health. I mean, a combination. They took old buildings in there make them
Converting.
into housing.
Yeah.
And they requested some contributions from each of the counties. And
Did they identify where those locations are?
with the what, where?
The locations of the conversion, those,
It's in the Virginia area.
okay, all right.
So it's not here, it's two huge buildings in that area, so. Anyway, but they had said at the time that they would welcome an opportunity to speak to this board.
So maybe since they've requested, they could come in June and we could have the hub come in July or, depending on what's on.
And the hub really wants the whole board to understand how vital and how many, they're gathering their numbers together. How many people, how many meals are served, how many riders there are, how many people benefit from the, of course, this might be an AEOA question, from the fuel assistance.
Sure.
And there's different ways that AEOA helps us, but
Are you on the AEOA board?
yes.
You might ask them, I don't know when your next meeting is, timeline, because the hub might come ahead based upon what they're saying. We've just been doing this, so we'd like an opportunity, it's in the future, whatever else. It seems like we were talking about this before when I was on AOA.
Yeah.
But if in fact, they would get the opportunity, but I think we might prioritize the hub in the timeline.
Sure.
Or the hub might have more flexibility than AEOA.
Well, whatever, you're on the
Yeah.
boards, ask them.
You can let me know, and is this appropriate for committee of the whole more than a regular
Yes.
business
Yes.
meeting?
Yes.
I just want
Yes.
to make sure. Okay, so we're,
And-
Just a discussion.
In
Yeah,
the,
just
in the past,
information.
AEOA kind of just came and presented the services
Yeah.
they provide, and so it's just kind of a general overview versus I feel like the hub's discussion is something we don't get as often, or I don't know, I can't remember if it had been
It used to be
presented, but-
that when you received discretionary funding from the county, you came before the committee of the whole or the county board and made a presentation and shared what you did with that funding.
okay.
Thank you.
Okay, well, I'll just let,
I'll be in touch with you.
yeah,
if
just
we-
let me know when you want it on the agenda, and I'll
Okay.
make sure we get that in there.
And if you know how much time they'd like, I mean, in the
Sure,
case of the
either
hub,
one.
it's probably open-ended. In the case if it's a presentation for AOA, you might just say how much time you usually like.
Yeah, 20 minutes, half an hour.
Any other reports? I have a couple. I did receive some information from John Ungaro, our legislative representative from Arrowhead counties, regarding the PILT, including recently released tax bill. The good news is the tax bill does not include proposed 34% reduction in PILT payments included in the governor's budget, but the bad news is there are no changes to PILT payments for lakeshore, shoreline property included in this session. So he says, given that there's a $20 million reduction in county programming, it's not surprising that there were no increases in the PILT payment. And this was, I received this about 10 days ago. The legislators are still trying to figure out how to do a balanced budget and all of that. So anyway, that's from John. And then Gitche Trail meeting, we're going to have ribbon cutting in Lutzen, the end of May. You'll all receive an invite to come. And that will be at the base of Ski Hill Road. And then that's in the morning at 10 o'clock on the 28th. Then they'll go down to Two Harbors, and they'll have another little ceremony there with that trail that you can see right along the highway for their ribbon cutting. And I've been tentatively in touch with MnDOT representative to ask them to have a public town hall meeting in regards to the work that they propose starting next year on resurfacing, ditching, and especially wider shoulders, because when you go down the shore, if you notice, from Tofty to the county line, there's itsy bitsy shoulders, and I sometimes see bicyclists, and I'm just fearing. 61 is also US Route Bike 41. So, it's a big deal, and we need better shoulders. Maybe not as big as going to Hoveland, but, we need a lot of work on that. So that is tentative coming up. Okay.
Madam Chair, if I
Yes.
could ask a question on the highway, up in your district, Commissioner White, what have we had communicated to us about that road reconstruction?
Highway 61,
Yeah,
that's MnDOT.
yeah, right.
There was a town
But I mean, aren't they
hall.
not, there was, I just want to know what they've informed us. I guess
That was, the county is, well, we were informed that the county is suspending their work on the Arrowhead Trail and Chicago Bay Road because of lack of funding. Hopefully, it can go forward.
right, but MnDOT's,
MnDOT's is, I can tell you right now, it's that when you turn off on 69, if you turn off on 69, you don't have to wait in line, but you're,
yeah. Well, that's what I'm wondering, what they're saying as to this is what we're doing and this is what we anticipate, whatever.
I think
but that's
Todd
gonna be a
Ford
major.
wrote something about this, didn't he?
Okay,
Yes,
yeah, I
he
guess I
did.
missed it, so,
Although the people who live on 69 might rather not have that so publicly noted.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, well,
Well, this all depends on your patience.
I'm just
but
going to
it's
say
not
that.
that long of a, well, what I could see when I pulled out this morning, it doesn't go that far. You wouldn't be saving any, well, maybe you would be, I don't know. Sorry, I was not telling the truth, not
The
true.
projection from MnDOT is it started yesterday, it'll be 2 years. They're doing a lot of bridge work, so just be patient, and maybe 69 will be good once in a while.
I
But it's
think
a
that
two-year
MnDOT
project.
had said in my previous, that they were gonna get all the bridges, all the culverts, and everything done, and then they'll do all the surfacing.
That's the way they've been doing it on other stretches, I think.
Right, I know, it just,
Yeah.
it's surprising how long it takes, if it's due to lack of funding, or if it's just too many things on
A
the
lot of
docket,
work.
I don't know.
Right.
But we
And
all know
timing.
that we see an awful lot of orange cones when we're traveling around in the state.
And the work at the tunnels, replacing the lights, they're not going to be working on the weekends.
Oh, that's
So,
nice,
Right,
I
Friday
thought it
through
was-
Sunday.
Yeah, just
thank you.
Monday through
MnDOT.
Thursday. Yeah, they realize, the backup from Two Harbors to the tunnel is not acceptable.
Oh, it's
Especially
unbelievable.
when you get busy in July and August, so. Okay, anything else for meetings to report? I'll move on to upcoming meetings, just a couple of them. As you mentioned, the open house for LEC edition on the 22nd from 5 to 7, and then the courthouse will be closed for Memorial Weekend. Can't believe it's going to be Memorial Weekend in a couple weeks. And then we have some recognition of our staff. May anniversaries, Jesse Johnson in Land Services, 1 year. Morgan Starkey, Sheriff, 1 year. Ty Backlund, Sheriff, 2 years. Stephen Genesee, SWCD, 3 years. Tia Parks in the Highway, 3 years. Diane Burnett in Land Services, 8 years. Elena Hansen in SWCD, 14 years. Allison Plummer in HR, 19 years. Paul Spry, Sheriff, 23 years. Will Sandstrom, Sheriff, 24 years. Darcy Zellader, Sheriff, 27 years. And Life Lundy, Sheriff, 27 years. And Rusty Johnson from the Highway, 29 years. And then we have milestone anniversaries. Jason Hughes and Sheriff, 10 years. Troy Ohm in Maintenance, 10 years. And Kyle Oberg in MIS, 20 years. And with no other business, our meeting is adjourned.
Oh, we've got a lot of
The
this.
district meeting for AMC, that one, I think we all probably have that on the radar.
That's in June.
Yeah.
We have a lot of experience in the sheriff department. That's probably all gonna leave probably about the same time.
Be prepared.